Chapter 1000. Yi Ching Han. What's the meaning of this? The South Mountain Sovereign had to show up. His descendants were about to be slapped to death. If he didn't show up, he wouldn't be a sovereign anymore. He thought that Yi Ching Han was just scaring them. At first, he wanted to watch the show from the side and see the hearts of his subordinates. Solitary Ing Chung made him look at him in a new light. This kid's temper was as stubborn as his. He was glad that the sovereigns of the South Mountains didn't leave. No matter what, he had succeeded as the South Mountain Sovereign. However, Yi Ching Han had made him very unhappy. You didn't care about your identity as a sovereign and bullied people in South Mountain City. You actually dared to kill them? Do you think I'm a fake sovereign? When I became one of the 8 sovereigns, your ancestors hadn't even been born yet. In Kuwait, what's the meaning of this? Your descendants kidnapped my father-in-law and mother-in-law and refused to release them. Since you don't want to show up, I can only teach these unfilial descendants a lesson on your behalf. Yi Ching Han's lazy voice resounded. Since the South Mountain Sovereign had called him by his name, and his tone was a little unfriendly, it was obvious that he didn't care about him when they first met. He wasn't going to be polite anymore. He was always like this. If others respected him, he would return the favor tenfold. Although he was a sovereign, his character hadn't changed. Humph! My descendants don't need you to teach them a lesson. The South Mountain Sovereign's tone became even colder. Yi Ching Han's words didn't give him any face. If Yi Ching Han wasn't related to Lord Devour, he would have started a fight already. Did he really think that just because he had comprehended the eternal space by luck, he could be compared to the real sovereigns who had broken through using the ultimate mystery? He suppressed the anger in his heart and said indifferently, "For Jia Wu's sake, retreat. I will treat it as if nothing happened today." Yi Ching Han was silent, but he started to send a message to Lord Devour. Although he was using the space power and heaven and earth energy to create a giant face, Yi Ching Han's body didn't change. He was just hiding inside the giant face. Sovereigns all liked to be mysterious. Of course, he would not destroy the image of a sovereign in the hearts of ordinary martial artists for no reason. The moment Yi Ching Han fell silent, all the cultivators in Nanling City became excited. What did this mean? This showed how domineering their sovereign was. With a single sentence, he was able to scare the arrogant frigid night sovereign. Countless people even began to imagine how Yi Ching Han would escape from Nanling City with his tail between his legs. Yi Ching Han didn't mind it. He simply told Lord Devour what had happened. Lord Devour's reply came fast, with only a few words. "If you want to fight, let's fight." Yi Ching Han was shaken. Lord Devour never lied. When he said it, he meant it. Of course, he was sure that he wanted to fight. Not to mention that Lord Devour had given him so much confidence. Even if he didn't have Lord Devour's support, he would still do it. He was indebted to the Empress of Rain. Furthermore, she was his woman. When he was still the 7th son of the Yi family, he dared to use a brick to knock out the 2nd young master of the Yi family. Right now, the Southern Mountain Sovereign was a lower rank 9. He was also a lower rank 9. What was there to be afraid of? Therefore, he said, "Hand him over. I'll leave immediately." "I gave you face, but you don't want it." The Southern Mountain Sovereign cursed. Actually, he was very clear about this matter. Since Yi Ching Han took Blue Rain away, it was equivalent to him losing face. Now, he still wanted him to hand him over? Wasn't this telling the entire immortal world that he, the Southern Mountain Sovereign, was afraid of Yi Ching Han? Did he still want his face? Without face, the hearts of the people would scatter. How could he lead the team? Yi Ching Han leave. The Southern Mountain Sovereign raised his voice and emphasized the word leave. Even a fool could hear the anger in these words. It was obvious that the Southern Mountain Sovereign was trying his best to suppress the anger in his heart. The fact that he didn't flip out was already giving Yi Ching Han face. Huh! An ear-piercing laughter rang out in the sky above the Southern Mountain Sovereign. As soon as the Southern Mountain Sovereign finished speaking, it immediately rang out. The laughter came from the giant face in the square. It was extremely loud and resounded throughout the entire Southern Mountain City. Even the mountains in the distance echoed. The monsters hidden in the mountains in the distance fled in all directions in fear. The birds flew away in all directions. The Southern Mountains' sovereign's expression changed. Others couldn't see it, but Yi Qinghan could feel it. A sovereign controlled the power of space. He didn't need to use his divine sense. Just the power of space alone could sense every movement in his surroundings. This was also why it was difficult for a sovereign to be ambushed. No matter how you ambushed him, the space would still fluctuate, right? Lonely Ying's expression changed. The expressions of the over 20 supremacies changed. The expressions of the tens of millions of martial artists below the city changed. The laughter was ear-piercing. Even a pig could feel the mockery. It was a blatant slap in the face and a declaration of war. Slapping the Southern Mountain sovereign's face made them feel even more uncomfortable than slapping their faces. If it was a declaration of war between two sovereigns, when the nest was overturned, how could the eggs remain intact? The laughter finally stopped. Yi Qinghan's domineering voice was accompanied by a powerful prowess that enveloped the entire Southern Mountain city once again. He only said 2 words. However, these 2 words were abnormally firm and without any intention of negotiation. Hand over the person. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Come to the east of the city. If you slap me to death, you will have the final say in the entire Southern Mountains continent. The Southern Mountains sovereign couldn't tolerate it any longer. He was very experienced and had a strong backing. He didn't care about many of the sovereigns in the immortal world. If any random sovereign came over and slapped him in the face, how could he continue living in the immortal world? Therefore, his words were filled with boundless killing intent. It was a direct declaration of war. Yi Qinghan wasn't afraid. He was even a little excited when he spoke. He wanted to experience a battle between sovereigns. Just as he was about to control the giant face to move, an indifferent voice interrupted his actions. "Inka, give me face and forget about this matter. Let him go." The voice belonged to a man. It sounded abruptly and very faintly. Under everyone's astonished gaze, another giant face appeared in the south of Southern Mountain City. Many people were unfamiliar with this face, but Yi Qinghan and Inkue were very familiar with it. Jita actually came. The Southern Mountain Sovereign was preparing to go out of the city to teach this arrogant kid a lesson. Although he wouldn't slap him to death, he would slap him until he was half dead. That woman probably wouldn't say anything. He didn't expect that the peacemaker would come. Jita actually came out personally for Yi Qinghan. "Jita, it's not that I don't give you face. It's the Frigid Knight's sovereign who doesn't give me face. Naturally, I won't give him face." The Southern Mountain sovereign was in a pinch. Since someone was going to be the peacemaker and Jita was here, Yi Qinghan obviously wouldn't casually make a move. Since that was the case, he had to show his stance. "Then, are you going to give me face?" Just as the martial artists below were incomparably shocked, excited, and glad that they could see 3 sovereigns at the same time, an emotionless female voice sounded again. Then, in front of everyone's stupefied gazes, another giant face condensed. This giant face didn't wait for the Southern Mountain Sovereign to reply and said in an incomparably domineering manner, "Hand him over, or else. Southern Mountain City will be turned into ashes." The 4 sovereigns had gathered in Southern Mountain City. Lord Devour had arrived. His appearance was still incomparably domineering. He was even more domineering than the Toyota tyranny. Chapter 1001. The Soul Emperor had many women under him, and 2 of them were the most famous, Enchantress and Dancing Maiden. The Enchantress charms the world and kills people invisibly. The dancer is cold-blooded and merciless. She kills people like slaughtering dogs. Devour Butterfly Dance. This name was given by the Soul Emperor. Back then, the Butterfly Dance battle god had caused the god bandits of the Wandering Sea to tremble in fear. She had never left anyone alive. She was the Soul Emperor's #1 killer. After the Soul Emperor died, Lord Devour changed her name to Devour Butterfly. She told the divine world that this butterfly of hers wouldn't fly anymore. In truth, after the Soul Emperor had died, Diawu had rarely killed anyone. The only time she had fought were for Yi Qinghan. Today, Lord Devour bared her fangs one more time. It was also for Yi Qinghan. As soon as she opened her mouth, She said that she wanted to massacre the entire city. If Yi Qinghan didn't give the Southern Mountains sovereign any face, then Lord Devour was slapping him in the face without giving him any face at all. The beating was loud and clear. The South Mountain sovereign's face changed completely. He had always disliked Lord Devour. So naturally, he didn't treat Yi Qinghan well either. He also knew that Lord Devour didn't like him. However, he didn't expect that Lord Devour would tear all pretense of cordiality and bully him. However, he didn't know how to respond to this. If he released him, he would lose all his face. If he didn't, should he? This crazy woman was capable of anything. It was possible that she would be the first sovereign to die in the divine world in the past several million years. Yi Qinghan kept silent. Since Lord Devour was here, it wasn't appropriate for him to say anything. The ethereal monarch also kept quiet. He knew that the real boss of the ethereal continent was this woman. In this world, the strongest fist was the absolute truth. Nanling City was completely silent. Even the sound of someone farting could shake the surroundings. Of course, even if someone wanted to fart right now, they would hold it back. Buzz! Apparently, Lord Devour wasn't that patient. The space fluctuated, and Lord Devour's face disappeared, replaced by a big hand. A big, beautiful hand that was even bigger than the square of South Mountain City. But that wasn't important. What was important was that this giant hand was slowly descending towards the front of the city lord's mansion. This crazy woman! The South Mountain sovereign cursed in his heart. This crazy woman really dared to kill without any warning. He hurriedly roared, "Diawu, stop! Loning Chang, let..." Bang! Before he could finish, his words were replaced by an earth-shattering sound. After Lord Devour appeared, Solitary Ing wanted to release them, but Ing Kuei didn't say anything. At this moment, he also wanted to release them, but he couldn't. The South Mountain Sovereign's bellow didn't make the gigantic hand tremble or stop. Instead, it slammed down on the square. Coincidentally, there was a finger that covered the 5 venerables of Lone Cherry City. Dust flew into the air, and the entire Nanling City shook. Countless tall buildings collapsed, and on the huge square, a huge and clear palm print covered the entire square. This palm strike was very particular, it was very imposing, but it didn't kill many people. Only 5 died, the 5 supreme experts of the Ing family. However, the South Mountain Sovereign's heart was bleeding and his face was twitching. However, he didn't dare to move. He couldn't even speak properly. This was because Yi Qinghan and the Misty Monarch moved. The 2 giant faces turned into 2 giant hands, and 3 giant hands appeared in the sky. The South Mountain Sovereign knew that if he dared to move just now, he would probably be the next one to attack, and it would be 3 simultaneous attacks. In the Misty Continent, there was a crazy woman. Now, there was an even crazier person than Lord Devour, Yi Qinghan. And from the looks of it, Jita was also led astray. Lord Devour's cold voice floated over again, still incomparably domineering. "You said it too late. Let me ask you again. Are you going to let them go?" "Let them go." The South Mountain Sovereign's 2 words were almost squeezed out through gritted teeth. The anger and coldness in his words weren't concealed at all. Yi Qinghan and the other 2 could feel that the South Mountain Sovereign's face had already turned black. Aggrieved. Incomparably aggrieved. This was the 3rd time in his life that he had suffered such humiliation. The first time was when his woman was snatched away, so he killed that person's entire family. The second time was even more unbearable. After becoming a sovereign, no one dared to be disrespectful to him, except for this woman, this crazy woman, and now, Yi Qinghan. Although his heart was already burning, he didn't act rashly. Not to mention Lord Devour. Just Jita and Yi Qinghan were enough to make him suffer. He was a sovereign, yes, but there were 3 of them. They were quickly brought out. Lan Yu's parents were both god emperors, but from the looks of it, they were god emperors that refined divine crystals. The 2 of them were terrified. Ever since they knew that solitary Ing Chung had come out of seclusion and became the Ing family head, they had been terrified. At this moment, they were looking at the giant palm on the plaza and the 4 giant faces in the sky. They were scared out of their wits, and their bodies were trembling. Buzz! Yi Qinghan's giant face disappeared, and Yi Qinghan slowly flew down. He smiled at the two of them and said, "Uncle, Annie, I've frightened you. Lan Yu asked me to bring you back." Lan Yu's father moved his lips, but he didn't dare to speak. He looked like an honest farmer. On the other hand, Lan Yu's mother wiped her hands and said with a trembling voice, Lord, do you know our little Yu?" The two of them didn't have a high position in the family, and it could even be said that they were no different from servants. However, they were from big families and they had seen important people before. They were very confused. Didn't the giant faces in the sky represent sovereigns? But there were 4 giant faces just now. Could there be 4 sovereigns? The two of them didn't dare to believe this. Moreover, this smiling young man in front of them seemed to be a giant face, and he was still calling them Uncle and Annie. At this moment, Nanling City was so strange that the two of them were a little confused. However, Lan Yu's mother felt that calling him Lord wasn't wrong. Yi Qinghan didn't know how to explain, so he directly sent a message to Yao Ji and had Lan Yu come out. Yao Ji immediately sent Lan Yu out. The mysterious place of the Dream Palace was revealed once more. As long as Yi Qinghan was there, he could instantly lock onto his coordinates. As soon as Lan Yu appeared, she saw her haggard parents. She burst into tears and threw herself into her mother's embrace. Lan Yu's parents were clearly very excited. They thought that Lan Yu had died. Not long ago, they heard that Lan Yu had appeared in the Misty Continent. Then they were suddenly captured. Now that they saw Lan Yu, how could they not be excited? "Father, mother, blue rain has caused you to suffer." Lan Yu knelt on the ground. Her mother also knelt on the ground. The two of them were a complete mess of tears. Blue Rain's father looked here and there anxiously. He was nervous, excited, and mostly afraid. "Lan Yu, tell your parents not to resist." Yi Qinghan smiled as he looked at Lan Yu. This wasn't a place to chat. Since they had kidnapped and killed people, it was best to retreat first. After sending the 3 of them to the Dream Palace, Yi Qinghan was just about to send a message to Lord Devour when he discovered something strange. Lord Devour and the Misty Monarch weren't there. The sky was just a condensed image. He couldn't lock onto them, so he could only send a message. Go to the Dream Palace, and then directly come back. After receiving Lord Devour's message, Yi Qinghan nodded. He waved his hand at the Southern Mountain Monarch, as if saying goodbye. Then he disappeared and entered the Dream Palace. As Yi Qinghan disappeared, the 2 giant faces of the Misty Monarch and Lord Devour also gradually faded. They quietly left, just like they had quietly come. They didn't leave a single word, but they left behind a handprint that covered the entire plaza. It was as if they were mocking everyone. Chapter 1002. Bang! The South Mountain Sovereign's face also disappeared. What was left was a huge hand. Of course, he didn't slap down towards the city. Instead, he slapped towards the towering mountain in the east of the city. There was a huge mountain in the east called South Ridge Mountain. It was 10,000 meters tall and was once a famous scenic spot in the South Ridge continent. It was also one of the symbols of South Ridge City. Under the South Ridge Sovereign's rage, the entire mountain was slapped in half. Mud and stones flew everywhere, and countless low-level demonic beasts were smashed into powder. The scene was extremely shocking. The millions of people in the city heard the roar in their ears. They all knelt on one knee in fear. They knew that the South Ridge Sovereign was furious and aggrieved. In fact, they were equally furious and aggrieved. Of course, there was also a tinge of relief. But what could they do? There were 3 sovereigns over there. Moreover, there was no right or wrong in this matter. In the god world, experts were respected. Even if Lord Devour, Yi Qinghan, and Kid killed the South Ridge Sovereign and turned South Ridge City into ashes, no one in the god world dared to say anything. No one in the god realm dared to say anything. If they wanted to blame someone, they could only blame Inkue, who asked him to snatch a woman from the frigid night sovereign. Having the strength to snatch a woman was domineering. Without the strength, it was courting death. The world was just that cruel. After the slap, the South Ridge Sovereign didn't care about South Ridge City anymore. The giant hand suddenly disappeared, and so did his body. He started to teleport towards the Star Sea. His teleportation speed was very fast. The space in the South Ridge continent was rather stable. After a while, he arrived at the Star Sea. Without a moment's hesitation, he continued teleporting. The distance he teleported did not change, as though he didn't see the space cracks in the Star Sea. Monarchs had the ability to control space, so they could indeed ignore these small cracks. Even if they were sucked in, they could just come out. Moreover, they were extremely sensitive to space. How could they be sucked in so easily? Li Kong, open the barrier. I want to see Lord. Inkue appeared above the Supreme Island in an instant and frowned as he looked down at the flickering barrier. He knew about this barrier. Even if he wanted to enter, it would be impossible unless he forcefully attacked. Therefore, he could only rely on the power of space to lock onto Li Kong and transmit his voice. Li Kong had been in a bad mood recently. How could he be in a good mood after someone died in his family? His most beloved son had died. There were originally 3 venerables in the family, but now there were only 2. Most importantly, his cyan netherworld battle armor was gone. It was a super supreme grade battle armor that could defend against any venerable's attack. The reason why he became the number 1 venerable was because of this battle armor. The God Realm's one and only set of battle armor, goddamn it, was smashed to pieces by Yi Qinghan. At this moment, he was sitting in the newly built courtyard, cursing and cursing Yi Qinghan. Who would have thought that someone would suddenly spread the rumor and call him by his name? He subconsciously wanted to curse, but his body shuddered. His fat head bounced up and down as he knelt down on one knee. Li Kong greets South Ridge Sovereign. Activate the shield. The South Mountain Sovereign used his divine senses to lock onto Li Kong. Of course, he knew what Li Kong was talking about. He transmitted his voice once more with an extremely cold tone. Li Kong hesitated for a moment and said helplessly, "Sir, it's not that I don't want to open it, but the monarch has given a death order. Unless someone attacks Supreme Island, he is not to be disturbed. If I disturb him, he will kill me. Also, I think he might not see you now." The South Mountain Sovereign's face darkened. His eyes flickered before he snorted and teleported towards the north. The north of the God Realm was the Wind Moon continent. At the northernmost part of the Wind Moon continent was a sea. In the sea, there was an island. The island was huge, almost a quarter of the size of the Misty continent. But not many people in the God Realm knew about this continent, because ordinary people couldn't find this continent at all. It was obvious that Inkue wasn't an ordinary person. After teleporting for a day, he arrived at an island covered in ice and snow. The God Realm didn't have lightning or rain, let alone ice and snow, unless it was created by an artifact like the Flying Snow Island. But this island was made of real ice and snow because there were countless ice blocks and icebergs floating on the surface of the sea. In reality, this wasn't created by an artifact. This island was called Ice and Snow Island. An ancient race lived on the island, the Ice and Snow race. The person Inkue went to meet was the Island Lord of Ice and Snow Island. Inkue requests an audience with the Queen. Outside Ice and Snow Island, Inkue stood in the void. He cupped his hands and bowed. His etiquette was very thoughtful and respectful. If Inkue was the boss in the South Mountains continent, he was the grandson here. "Come in." An ethereal voice came. It was a cold voice. It was a woman's voice. Inkue bowed again and flew inside. It wasn't that he couldn't teleport here, but he didn't dare to. Flying into Ice and Snow Island, he saw white along the way. The trees were white and had no green leaves. Even under the snow, these trees didn't freeze to death. Wooden houses could be seen everywhere. Of course, it was also white. It was so white that it was boring. But Inkue didn't find it boring, because the cold-looking beauties were the most beautiful seen. The women here were like ice sculptures. They were breathtakingly beautiful. There were only women here, and they were all beauties. They liked to wear snow-white dresses and had cold expressions on their faces. Looking at this place that he loved and hated, Inkue's smile didn't diminish. Instead, he became more respectful. He had lived on this island for many years. He had also broken through to rank 9 on this island. Ice-Snow race was one of the ancient races. This race was really weird. They were all women, and they were all extremely beautiful. Moreover, all of them were cultivation geniuses. Every once in a while, they would head to the god world to capture people. Capture men? Capture a man with outstanding talent. The goal was simple: to breed. To breed with people who needed to give birth. Like a breeding pig, he was chased around the village and the alleys. This kind of work was humiliating and enjoyable. However, the ending was really cruel. That was because, in the end, those who were bred couldn't escape death. Inka was one of them. He was the only one who survived because he broke through to rank 9 here. Ice Queen let him out and promised to do something for him. If not for Lord Devour bringing him such humiliation, he wouldn't have walked into this place. This place had a past that he couldn't bear to look back on. But Lord Devour did that while his backer, Star Monarch, was in secluded meditation. If he didn't get back at him, then he wouldn't be able to do anything in the future. So, he came here to find Ice Queen to fulfill that promise. Walking into the luxurious ice-snow palace of the Island Master, looking at the cold-looking women beside him, looking at the contempt and mockery in their eyes, Inkue seemed to remember the humiliation he had suffered under their whips, under their crotches, and under their feet. His heart was burning with rage, but he didn't show it on his face. Because he knew clearly that the woman in the palace was so beautiful that he didn't dare to look at her directly. She was too strong, ridiculously strong. The palace was still dull and white. The decorations inside were gorgeous, with all kinds of accessories that the god world didn't have. The woman sitting in the palace was really beautiful. She was like a goddess from the 9 heavens. She was so elegant that one couldn't look at her directly. One didn't dare to have any blasphemous thoughts. Chapter 1003. Inkue greets the queen. Inkue didn't want to kneel, but he instinctively knelt on one knee. Perhaps it was because this woman had left a deep impression on him during that period of time, or perhaps she was even stronger than Lord Devour, which made him afraid. Lord Devour had reached level 9 not long ago. Although many monarchs knew that she was at the upper level of level 9, they weren't convinced. After all, a nobody that they could kill with a fart had climbed up to their heads. It was hard for them to accept. However, this woman was different. She had been one of the overlords of the god realm for a very long time, and had accumulated her power for a very long time. Moreover, she had been at the 9th level for far too long, and no one knew if her strength had improved by now. When Yi Qinghan wanted to go to the southern mountain continent, Lord Devour had told him that he couldn't go to the northernmost region, which was the icy and snow island. The woman on the frozen throne sat motionlessly, like an ice sculpture. If it wasn't for the invisible aura emanating from her body and the chilling coldness in her eyes, even Inkue would have thought that she was really an ice sculpture. An absolutely beautiful ice sculpture. Women who had become a god could change some features of their bodies, such as making their waists more slender, their facial features more exquisite, their legs longer, and their breasts more voluptuous. However, no matter how much they changed, they couldn't become truly beautiful, because the changes were always imperfect and unnatural, giving people a sense of blemish. However, there were some women that you could recognize at first glance that their bodies and features were absolutely original. They were the kind of natural beauties that people couldn't forget at first glance. No doubt, the woman on the throne belonged to this category. What's the matter? The woman opened her mouth, but her lips just moved a little. If you didn't look carefully, you wouldn't even see her lips move. Her voice was as cold as before. "Sir, please help me kill 2 people." Inkue didn't get up, but respectfully said. He slightly lifted his head to look at the woman, his eyes full of hope. The woman opened her mouth again. "Who?" "Devour Diawu, Yi Qinghan." Inkue said quickly, but he didn't explain anything. He knew that the people of the Ice and Snow Island rarely went out, but they knew everything that happened in the divine world like the back of their hands. The woman fell silent, but her body moved. She stretched out a jade-white hand and gently placed it on the armrest of the ice throne. She lightly knocked on it, making a series of d-d-d sounds. This sound rang in Inkue's ears, but it made his heart beat along with it. It was incomparably strange. After a long time, The woman finally said, "Change your request. I can't agree to this." "This? Lord, why?" Inkue was stunned. From Ice Queen's tone, she could kill the two of them, but he didn't want to kill him? The woman's eyes spun as a look of dissatisfaction appeared in her eyes. However, she still explained in the end, "Sure, Jiawu, I can't kill her. Her true body isn't in the godly realm. As for Yi Qinghan, he couldn't be killed. If you don't have any requests now, go back." Inkue was even more stunned. After a while, he realized that the Ice Queen had already disappeared from the Ice Throne. He could only sigh and fly out. After leaving the Ice and Snow Island, he could only teleport back. However, when he returned to the southern mountain continent, he still didn't understand the meaning of the Ice Queen's words. He looked at the huge palm print in the city from afar, and his eyes flickered with a sinister light. After pondering for a long time, he could only sigh deeply. Although it was hard to swallow, he had no choice but to swallow it for the time being. "Little you, did you really become a 7th grade war god? And that lord just now, was he really a monarch?" In the huge, illusory palace, only Lan Yu and her parents were left. Although Lan Yu explained it clearly, her parents still felt like they were in a dream. How did their daughter become a 7th grade war god in the blink of an eye? And she even found a monarch as her son-in-law? To the two of them, who had suffered the coldness and mockery of their families for hundreds of thousands of years, this was simply a fantasy story. A monarch, such a remote and supreme existence, actually became their son-in-law. You don't have to call him Lord. He's a good person. Just call him Qinghan. For you, he could directly declare war on Inkue, which shows that he respects you a lot. Father, mother, little you has made you suffer. I promise that when you go to the Flame Dragon City, you will live a good life. Lan Yu's face was full of smiles, which she couldn't hide. She was like the peach blossoms after the spring rain, so gorgeous, so brilliant. Lan Yu's mother's appearance was not bad, but her body couldn't hide the vicissitudes of life. At this moment, she had cried enough, and her eyes were full of gratification. She nodded and said, "Yes, I believe that our little you has grown up. Your father and I have been waiting for this day." Lan Yu's father slightly bent over, rubbed his hands, and moved his lips. He wanted to say something several times, but he didn't dare to. At this moment, he finally couldn't help but ask, "Little you, when are we going to the Flame Dragon City? I still feel uneasy." "Don't worry, father. Qinghan has gone to the Flame Dragon Island to handle some matters. After he finishes, he will take us away. Moreover, this place is absolutely safe." Lan Yu looked at her father's timid appearance and felt a burst of heartache. After she became the family's genius, her father's back was straight for a few years. However, after she ran away from the marriage, his days in the Lan family must have been even more difficult, right? From the way he subconsciously bent over, it could be seen that he had been bending over for these hundreds of thousands of years. Yi Qinghan had indeed gone to the Flame Dragon Island. The Flame Dragon Island was not far from the Soul Emperor Island. The Illusion Palace was inside the Soul Emperor Pavilion, so of course he could control the restrictions and casually teleport out of the Soul Emperor Pavilion. Since he was going to return to the Misty Continent from the Soul Emperor Island, Yi Qinghan naturally wouldn't give up on the Flame Dragon Island. His and Yu Qingqing's ancestors were there. He left the Illusion Palace for Lan Yu and her parents to reminisce about old times, and brought everyone else out. Ignoring the 8 supremacies guarding the Soul Emperor Pavilion, he had Yao Ji bring them and teleport. In just 2 days, everyone found the Flame Dragon Island. Of the nearby islands, aside from Soul Emperor Island, Flame Dragon Island was the largest. One could easily find it by asking around. Of course, this was only relatively speaking. In fact, the Flame Dragon Island was only a few tenths of the size of the Peach Blossom Island. However, when Yi Qinghan brought Xiaohei and a group of beauties and appeared out of nowhere on the Flame Dragon Island, the residents on the island were frightened. That was because the island's protective barrier didn't even tremble. These people had teleported. With Yi Qinghan's strength, he didn't need to use spatial power. He could just use his divine sense to easily scan the entire island. There were more than a dozen tribes on the island and a small city. The city's name was actually Flame Dragon City. There were only a few 100,000 residents on the island, but the strongest person was only a 5th-grade war god. What made Yi Qinghan feel extremely strange was that he didn't detect the Night Emperor and the others on the island. The ancestral portraits of the 5 great families were placed on the ancestral halls of each family. Yi Qinghan had been worshipping them since he was young, so how could he not recognize them? Yu Qingcheng also came out of seclusion. She scanned the area with her divine sense, but didn't find the Moon Queen. A black figure, accompanied by several emperor gods, quickly flew out of the small city. Then, they fearfully knelt on one knee in midair and saluted. The leader was the 5th-grade war god. He respectfully and even fearfully said to Yi Qinghan and the others, "Greetings, my lords. I am the city lord of the Flame Dragon City, Yi Lushui. What orders do you have for me?" "Your name is Yi Lushui?" Yi Qinghan slightly raised his eyebrows and quickly asked, "Who are you to the Night Emperor?" The 5th-grade war god's body trembled. He was extremely startled. However, seeing that these people didn't seem to have any ill intentions, he boldly said, "My lord, the Night Emperor is my father." Ah! Black lines appeared on Yi Qinghan's face. He quickly pulled the 5th-grade war god up and knelt on one knee in front of him. He respectfully said, "The 136th generation descendant of the Yi family, Yi Qinghan, pays his respects to the elder god." Chapter 1004. As soon as Yi Qinghan knelt down, everyone behind him immediately knelt down as well. This frightened the 5th-grade war god, Yi Lushui. There was no doubt that there were venerables among this group of people. Furthermore, all of them looked wealthy and respectable. With so many beauties and all kinds of temperaments, he was dazzled. Temperament was not something that could be cultivated by just anyone. "Sir, this..." Yi Luyan quickly wanted to help Yi Qinghan up, but she was afraid of being rude. She didn't dare to stand and knelt down as well. However, she suddenly thought of something and asked doubtfully, "Oh right, you said that you were the 136th generation descendant of the Yi family? Which Yi family are you talking about?" "Flame Dragon Continent, Song City Yi family," Yi Qinghan said firmly. At the same time, his expression became even more respectful. This was because he found something on Yi Liuyun's body. Beast battling space. The Yi family's exclusive beast battling space. "What? Are you really a descendant of the Yi family?" Yi Liuyun's eyes suddenly widened, and an ecstatic smile appeared on her face. She hurriedly helped Yi Qinghan up and said, get up, child." Yi Qinghan was also very excited. If this was the Night Emperor's son, then he was truly an ancestor. Although his status and strength were different now, since childhood, the Night Emperor was the true god in the hearts of the Yi family. Being able to see the son of a true god, of course he would be a little excited. "Xiaohei, beast merging," Yi Qinghan shouted. Xiaohei immediately turned into a shadow and entered Yi Qinghan's body. Although Xiaohei had transformed into a human, he could transform into his divine beast form at any time. Of course, he could merge. That's right. It's the Yi family's beast god's special skill. You are indeed a descendant of our Yi family. Looking at Yi Qinghan's sudden surge of divine power and the small beast tattoo on the corner of his forehead, Yi Luyan became even more excited. The Night Emperor had said that apart from the Yi family, no one else could merge with a battle beast. He hurriedly said to Yi Qinghan and the people around him, "Kids, come, let's go. Let's talk after we enter the city. This place is simple and crude. Please don't take offense." Yi Qinghan released the beast fusion, and the group flew towards the small city. There were tens of thousands of people living in the city, and there were also dozens of tribes nearby. Seeing Yi Luyan lead a group of people towards the city lord's mansion, countless people popped their heads out from their rooms, streets, and corners to look at them curiously. Yi Qinghan looked at the people below him warmly. He could easily sense that there were countless people with battle beasts. Others might not be able to sense it, but as a descendant of the Yi family, he was very powerful. Of course, he could sense it. They entered the hall of the city lord's mansion. It was quite spacious inside. Of course, it was too small for the real Fire Dragon City's city lord's mansion. Everyone sat down, and a few maids immediately served fragrant tea. These maids all looked respectfully at the guests in the room. Some were respectful, some were envious, and some were slightly jealous. "This? Can you wait for a moment?" Suddenly, Yu Qingqing spoke. Yi Qinghan and Yi Luyun looked over in surprise. The maid who was stopped by Yu Qingqing hurriedly knelt down and said fearfully, "My lord, don't, stand up." Yu Qingqing, who had been extremely calm, could no longer remain calm. She hurriedly stood up and helped the maid up. She asked, "Are you from the Yu family? Are you a descendant of the Moon Queen?" "Yes, what's wrong, my lord?" The maid nodded, looking confused. This time, it was Yu Qingqing who hurriedly knelt down. Yi Qinghan and the others looked awkward. Should they kneel or not? "Enough! Don't talk about these empty formalities. The immortal realm doesn't care about seniority, only strength." In the end, Yi Luyun waved her hand and got rid of the awkwardness of Yi Qinghan and the others. When everyone was seated again, for people flew in from outside. There were 3 men and 1 woman. There was nothing special about their appearance, but the woman was rather seductive. However, she was merely displaying her slight skill in front of Yao Ji. Yi Luyun hurriedly stood up and explained to Yi Qinghan, "Yi Qinghan, come. Let me introduce you. The 2 beside me are also descendants of the Fire Dragon continent. Their names are Xia Fei and Xia Xia. This is Feng Lei, the son of the Wind Monarch. This is Xiuhua, the son of the Flower Monarch. This is Yu Yin, the daughter of the Moon Queen, and also Hua Wux's wife. Greetings to all the seniors." Yi Qinghan gestured with his eyes. Yu Qingcheng, Yi Qinggu, Yi Qingyu, and Yin Ling are all stood up. This time, they did not kneel. Instead, they respectfully bent their bodies and knelt. The 4 of them were not very strong. Hua Wuk and the Moon Queen were peak god kings, while the other 2 were only second-level god kings. There were only 3 people on the entire island who were god emperors. Xia Fei and Xia Xia had just become god emperors. The weakest person on Yi Qinghan's side was a god king. If they all knelt, they would probably all be scared to death. After bowing, Yi Qinghan solemnly explained, "Seniors, this is Yu Qingcheng, Yi Qinggu, Yi Qingyu, and Yin Ling Er. We're all from the Fire Dragon continent. Qingcheng is a descendant of the Moon Queen. The 3 of us are descendants of the Yi family, and Ling Er is also from the continent." The 4 of them were stunned, and their expressions were the same as Yi Luyun's. This was especially true for Yu Yin, who hurriedly pulled Yu Qingqing over and carefully examined her. Yi Luyun smiled and had the 4 of them take their seats. Only then did she look at Yi Qinghan. Although he could not sense the strength of many of the people Yi Qinghan had brought, he could tell that this young man was their leader. Yi Luyun curiously asked, "I heard Father talk about the Fire Dragon continent. They've always wanted to go back, but they never had the chance. How did you come to the God Realm? Wasn't Purple Island sealed? Also, how did you find this place? The Misty Continent is very far from here. Also, if you don't mind, can you tell me how strong you are?" Yi Qing'an smiled. He could tell something from Yi Luyun's words. After a few moments of thought, he asked, "Were the ancestors forced out of the Misty Continent by the dual-pupil nether race? Did they end up here? Also, have you been sealing off the island recently?" The 5 of them, along with the 2 next to Yi Luyun, were stunned. They stared at Yi Qinghan in disbelief. Their expressions confirmed this to Yi Qinghan. Otherwise, it would be hard to explain why the 5 ancestors hadn't returned to the Fire Dragon continent for so many years. Although it was expensive to teleport to a material plane, Yi Luyun was a 5th-grade war god. It wouldn't be difficult for her to return. The only explanation was that they were afraid of the dual-pupil nether race and didn't dare to return to the Misty Continent. And Yi Qinghan's deeds were everywhere in the God Realm. If the Fire Dragon Island wasn't sealed, they would definitely know about him. At the very least, they would send someone to Fire Dragon City to ask about him. Yi Qinghan pondered and didn't know how to explain. Xiao He stood up impatiently. He pointed at Yi Qinghan and said proudly, "Seniors, I can answer your question with 1 sentence. My boss is the #1 genius of the Fire Dragon continent, and the number one genius of the god realm. Now, he is a ninth-grade war god, the frigid night sovereign. Tell me, isn't it easy for a sovereign to find you? What? Ninth grade? Sovereign? Thump! Xiaohei's words frightened the 7 people in the room. 3 of them directly slid down from their chairs and looked at Yi Qinghan in fear, as if they were looking at a dreadful monster. They naturally knew about the sovereign and the ninth grade. Before the ancestors settled down on this remote island, they had also drifted in the sea of stars for a period of time. Of course, they also told them about the peak existences of the god realm. But they couldn't connect the legendary supreme existences that stood in the clouds with this young man who claimed to be a descendant of the Yi family. Yi Luyan wiped the cold sweat off his face and swallowed hard. If it weren't for Yi Qinghan's ability to merge with battle beasts, he wouldn't dare believe that this person was a descendant of the Yi family. The number one genius of the Fire Dragon continent was nothing. The number one genius of the god realm was also acceptable. But a descendant of more than 100 generations suddenly appeared and told him that he was already the peak existence of the god realm. How could he accept it? Chapter 1005. Yi Qinghan smiled when he saw this. He did not explain anything. He made a very simple gesture, taking out a supreme, quality god artifact from his space ring. Holding it in his left hand, origin energy appeared in his right hand, and he gently touched it. Bang! A soft sound accompanied the 2 halves of the divine sword. Although Yi Luyan and the others had been sealed off from the island, they weren't country bumpkins. They knew that the white gas that emerged from Yi Qinghan's hand was the origin energy. This time, they were completely convinced. They couldn't help but sigh. The strongest warrior they had seen in their lives was only a 7th-grade war god. They didn't expect to see a sovereign in their lives, and it was their descendant. Great ancestor. Where are great ancestor Knight Emperor and the others? Why aren't they on the island? Yi Qinghan asked about something that had been puzzling him ever since he arrived on the island. Qinghan, you don't have to call me great ancestor. The divine realm has its own rules. How about this? You can call me clan elder. You can call these people seniors. Qingwu, Qingyu, and Qingsheng. You can call them that too. Yi Luyan hurriedly waved his hand. He felt uncomfortable being called great ancestor by a sovereign. Although they were all descendants of the 5 great families, strictly speaking, they were of a different bloodline from the 5 great families of the Flame Dragon continent. Seeing that they nodded, Yi Luyan continued. Father and the others went to search for the bloodline of the beast god. The bloodline of the beast god? Yi Qinghan, Yu Qingsheng, and Yi Qingwu glanced at each other in astonishment. They looked at Yi Luyan doubtfully, waiting for his explanation. Yi Luyan smiled bitterly and said, I don't know the details. Father said that our Yi family is the descendant of one of the 10 ancient gods, the beast god. The wind, flower, snow, moon 4 great families were branches of the beast god's bloodline. Father said that for millions of years, the 10 ancient gods not only dominated the divine realm, but also secretly ruled over countless planes. However, after the apocalyptic war, the 10 ancient gods all fell. The heirs of the various clans were almost all dead. Those who were not dead had all escaped to the material plane or into secret realms. And right now, Father and the others are going to a secret realm to search for the lineage of the beast god. Xiaohei jumped up and said excitedly, Wow, boss, I didn't expect you to be a descendant of the 10 ancient gods. Yi Luyan and the others puffed their chests in pride. Fireworks, who was next to him, smiled sweetly as she looked at Yi Qinghan. She was also a descendant of one of the 10 ancient gods, a descendant of the thunder god. This meant that she and Yi Qinghan had a deep relationship. Yi Qinghan frowned and fell silent. The legends of the 10 ancient gods had always existed in the god realm, but there were no accurate historical records. Moreover, there were many different kinds of rumors. Some said that there were actually 100 ancient gods, and the 10 ancient gods were just the strongest among them. However, no one knew exactly how strong the 10 ancient gods were. It was rumored that millions of years ago, the god world had experienced an apocalyptic war. Almost all of the peak experts of the god world had died. Of course, there were many legends, but none of them were recorded in history. Yi Qinghan originally didn't care about it, but he didn't expect to hear that he was a descendant of the beast god. After pondering for a while, Yi Qinghan asked, "Do you know that the ancestors went to that secret realm? How strong were they when they left?" Yi Luyan shook her head and said, "Father didn't say where they went. He only said that as long as they didn't return, the island would be sealed. Unless a venerable appeared, the seal could not be lifted. Then, they would find a way to exterminate the double-eyed netherworld race and save the fire dragon continent. Father just became a 7th grade war god. Uncle Shui and Uncle Hua are 6th grade war gods. Aunt Yu is a soul cultivator, and her soul was at the peak of the God King realm when she left. As for Uncle Hua, he has already passed away. Exterminate the double-eyed netherworld race? Save the fire dragon continent." Yi Qinghan's eyes lit up. It seemed like the Night Emperor and the others didn't forget about the descendants of the fire dragon continent. They went to the secret realm to seek help or to make a breakthrough in their strength, and then think of a way to save the fire dragon continent. Yi Qinghan said solemnly, "Elders, seniors, I will handle the double-eyed netherworld race. You don't have to worry about the fire dragon continent. I built a city on the misty continent, also called the Fire Dragon City. Do you think it's possible to move all of them there? I have some enmity with the Star Sea, and I don't want to implicate you." This, Yi Luyun and the others looked at each other and hesitated. After all, they weren't one of the 5 Night Emperor and the others. How could they make such a decision so easily? Moreover, after living on this island for so long, it was impossible for them to not have feelings for each other. Yi Qinghan didn't say anything and let the 7 of them discuss through voice transmission. However, after a long discussion, they still couldn't come to a conclusion. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and made the decision. "Elder, let's do it this way. Have a few people come with me to Fire Dragon City and take a look. While we're at it, we can understand the situation in the immortal realm before we come to a decision. I can't promise you anything else, but if the residents of the island go to Fire Dragon City, I can guarantee their safety and cultivation resources." Yi Luyan and the others thought about it and agreed with this suggestion. After another round of discussion, they finally decided that Yi Luyan would bring Xiaofei, Fenglei, and the other 2. With the matter settled, Yi Qinghan didn't stay any longer. He walked out of the hall and went to the open space outside. With a wave of his hand, he took out countless divine artifacts, pills, and treasures from his spatial ring. Seeing Yi Luyan and the others dumbfounded, Xiao He and the others did not mind. Yi Qinghan had killed so many people and even owned the Soul Emperor Pavilion. These things were nothing to him, and Yi Qinghan still had several transcendent-grade divine artifacts. After Yi Luyan gave some instructions, Yi Qinghan nodded at Yao Ji. Under the gazes of the countless martial artists on the island, everyone vanished into thin air, entering the illusory palace. Inside the illusory palace, when Lan Yu saw everyone appear, he immediately beamed. Meanwhile, Lan Yu's parents nervously looked at Yi Qinghan, at this son-in-law of theirs whose background could scare anyone to death. "How about this? Those who want to cultivate in the illusory palace can cultivate here. Those who want to come with me for some fresh air can come with me. Let's get ready to go back to Fire Dragon City." In the end, most of them followed him out, while Yi Yaorao and Yu Qingsheng continued to cultivate. In any case, they didn't have to worry about danger if they followed Yi Qinghan. It was just a sightseeing trip. Even the South Mountain Sovereign was afraid. So who did they have to be afraid of? Yi Qinghan simply had the 2 6th grade war gods slow down a little. The group enjoyed the scenery along the way back and even stayed in a famous city on the Blood Knight continent for a few days. By the time they returned to the Misty continent, half a year had passed. After following Yi Luyan around for half a year, Yi Luyan had also heard about Yi Qinghan's legends for half a year. When he arrived at Flame Dragon City, which was 100 times larger than their Flame Dragon City, and saw hundreds of thousands of martialists kneeling on one knee before Yi Qinghan and respectfully calling him Han Yi Monarch, he finally completely accepted this matter. Chapter 1006. The matter of entertaining Yi Luyan was left to Yi Tianlong and the other two. Yi Luyan immediately decided to move the entire island over. After all, there were still 2/3 of the city that was empty. Moreover, Lei Zhen was preparing to build 9 satellite cities around Flame Dragon City, so there was a lot of space. Lan Yu's parents finally confirmed that their son-in-law was not a swindler, but a true monarch, so they settled down in Flame Dragon City. However, the girls could still accept bringing back Lan Yu. After all, Rain Queen had been with Yi Qinghan for many years. However, the starry-eyed cherry blossoms that looked at Yi Qinghan all day reminded everyone that this could not go on. Thus, with Yi Qingwu as the leader, the monarch of Cold Knight's harem held a grand meeting. Yi Qinghan was present, but he had the right to listen, not speak. In the end, the meeting ended. There was only one topic, which was that Yi Qinghan was not allowed to fool around. Otherwise, after millions of years, the entire Flame Dragon City would be filled with women. Yi Qinghan wanted to protest. In fact, most of these women were the ones taking the initiative, while he was the one being passive. However, facing the harem that worked together to resist the enemy, Yi Qinghan chose to remain silent. Since ancient times, only women and villains were difficult to deal with. It was impossible to reason with a woman, let alone a group of women. With so many women living in the city lord's mansion, it was too simple. In the end, Yi Qingwu took the lead and decided to spend a large amount of money to build several palaces in God Sealing Valley. Then, they set up a teleportation gate in the city lord's mansion, allowing people to freely enter and exit. Yi Qinghan did not object. Didn't he work hard his entire life to give his family a good life? Moreover, Yi Qingwu and Yi Qingyu could not cultivate anymore. Yinling, fireworks, and the others also liked to play around and were not idle. It was good to give them something to do. Lan Yu officially confirmed her identity as the monarch's official wife, but they did not hold a grand wedding. They just held a lively banquet together, which was considered to have accepted them into the group. In the future, when Fireworks and Yinling entered the family, they also planned to do the same. Otherwise, Yi Qinghan would have a headache if he had to hold a wedding every other day. When he was free, Yi Qinghan went to the Soul Devourer Palace to discuss with Lord Devourer about the date of the marriage proposal. Then, he went to Rain Butterfly Island with Yi Tianlong and the others, bringing a transcendent grade divine artifact to propose marriage. Then, he went to Lei Zhen and Long Yang Manor. Of course, he was there to propose. These days, Yi Qinghan was immersed in happiness. As for other matters, he simply did not think about them. Even the dual-pupil Netherworld race was in a good mood and only gave them an ultimatum, telling them to scram from the Misty continent. However, as soon as the ultimatum was issued, Netherworld City was completely empty that night. Lei Zhen conveniently sent people to occupy it, making it one of the satellite cities. Even though the Netherworld City was the territory of the Fire Beacon Hall, and even though Xiangdi had suddenly achieved the Martial Highness realm when he was attacking the Flame Dragon City, he did not complain at all. Instead, he had personally paid the Flame Dragon City a visit. He asked Lei Zhen if one city was enough. If not, the entire Fire Beacon Manor could be under Flame Dragon City's banner, changing it to Flame Dragon Manor. Yi Qinghan did not meet Xiangdi, not because he was posturing, but because he was meeting with a more important guest. In a small hall on the 5th floor of the City Lord Manor, Yi Qinghan and a middle-aged man sat opposite each other. The middle-aged man did not have a domineering face, nor did he have a sharp, murderous aura. He looked like an ordinary middle-aged man with a bright smile. Yi Qinghan looked at the middle-aged man with a smile and said, "Sir, if you need anything, just send me a message. I'll be there immediately. Why are you being so polite?" The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows and said angrily, "Brother Yi, if you call me sir again, I'll leave immediately." "Ha, Brother Jita, I was wrong. I'll punish myself with a cup of wine. You don't need to call me Brother Yi. Call me Little Han." Yi Qinghan laughed. He found Jita's temper amusing. He immediately raised his cup and drank a cup of strong wine. Jita had taken action in South Mountain City without hesitation, which had won Yi Qinghan's favor. Although he knew it was all because of Lord Devour, he could still make friends with him. Little Han. Yeah, from now on, you'll be called Little Han. Jita also drank a cup of wine. To a divine realm warrior, drinking wine was no different from drinking water. However, the atmosphere was better. After Jita drank, his eyes sparkled with a sincere smile as he said, I'm here to give you a gift. I heard that you're going to marry several wives. Your luck with women is unparalleled. I'm a little jealous. It's the best gift for you to come. Don't talk about this. I know that you have 3,000 beauties in your harem. Before you became a king, your name spread throughout the divine world. Yi Qing'an smiled, revealing Jita's background. Let's not talk about this. Let's talk business. Jita waved his hand. Then his face turned serious as he said, Little Han, I'm going to give you half of the prefectures in the south. What do you think? Of course, if you can't handle something, you can call me at any time. Big Brother's gift is really big. Even though Yi Qing'an had experienced many things, he was still shocked. Jita's gift was really big. The Misty Continent had 108 prefectures. He was giving half of them to Yi Qing'an, which was 54 prefectures. It was equivalent to giving half of the country to Yi Qing'an. Moreover, he looked very sincere, and his tone was very solemn. This meant that as long as Yi Qing'an nodded, he would be the king of the Misty Continent's south. Lord Devour had told Yi Qing'an that Jita had planned to give Lord Devour the right to rule the continent. However, Lord Devour had said that he wasn't interested. This meant one thing, regardless of whether Jita was sincere or for some other reason. The most important thing was that Jita was sincere. Yi Qing'an didn't think for too long. His face was full of smiles again. This time, he was very sincere. No matter what, Jita's intentions were sincere. He said seriously, Yi Qing'an appreciates Big Brother's intentions. However, you know that I don't even want to manage Flame Dragon City. Do you want me to manage half of the continent? Besides, if Little Brother wants a territory, wait until I'm strong enough. Then I can go and fight for it myself. Big Brother Jita, you don't have to be polite with me. Good. Heroic. Domineering. Jita slammed the table and stood up. His eyes were full of admiration and fondness. Of course, he controlled his strength. Although he slammed the table, it didn't break. Actually, he had no choice but to come here today to give the gift. It was just like when he came to Lord Devour. Of course, he didn't want to give away territories, but he had to show this gesture. A continent with 3 kings was, of course, a glorious thing in the divine world. It could also intimidate the other kings. However, they had to be united. Jita understood this. That was why he didn't hesitate to take action in South Ridge City. After Yi Qing'an came back, he immediately came to show this gesture. When he saw Yi Qing'an become more intimate with him, he knew that his efforts were rewarded. If you want to take something, you have to give it first. He just showed a gesture, but he had won Lord Devour and Yi Qing'an's recognition and respect. He looked at Yi Qing'an and smiled contentedly. He was very happy. In his heart, Yi Qing'an was no less important than Lord Devour. No one knew how far a king who had cultivated for less than 100 years could go in the future. However, he knew that this genius would leave the divine world one day and fight in the sea of stars that they all longed for, but didn't dare to set foot on. Chapter 1007. Under Yi Qing'an's resolute attitude, the two became closer. Friends who did not have financial ties could stay together longer. If there was a conflict of interest, even brothers would turn against each other. Yi Qing'an suddenly thought of something and asked curiously, "All right, Brother Jita, why don't you have any children?" Jita had heard that he had a harem of 3,000, but he had never heard of any children. This made Yi Qing'an suspicious. It was because every monarch had children, such as the Blood Fiend King and Solitary Ingcheng. If Jita had children, then he and Tu Xie would not have been the first young master of the continent. Little Han, you don't understand. Kid gave an enigmatic smile. His eyes became deep as he faintly said, "The more children there are, the messier the family will become. Those women of mine are now fighting fiercely. If each of them gives birth to a son or daughter, the harem will become chaotic." Yi Qing'an pondered for a moment, and gave Kid a thumbs up. Kid had too many women. If every woman gave birth to one, if each of them had a child, then his children would get married and continue to have children. In less than 10,000 years, there would be a lot of children. At that time, the children would be divided into different factions. Fighting here would be a headache. Moreover, the ethereal monarch sighed deeply and said with a serious face, "I feel that the divine world is hiding a great danger. Haven't you noticed that the demons have been descending more and more recently, and they are getting stronger? I've been feeling uneasy lately. I feel that something big is about to happen. Before the divine world is completely safe, I will not let my children die with me." And Yi Qinghan raised his eyebrows. Jita had been a monarch for millions of years and should know a lot about the divine world. He was not like Lord Devour, so he could ask some questions. Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment and asked, "Brother Jita, is the demon world going to attack the divine world?" "Not really." Jita shook his head and said, "If they want to attack a plane, they must do it through the plane entrance because the demon monarch's divine power is too strong. They cannot enter the divine world through the weak space. For example, if I want to go to the demon world, I cannot tear the space to enter, even if there were only a few Azura kings descending. With us sovereigns here, no matter how many Azura kings come, they will all die. But once all of the divine world's evil creeks begin to riot, who knows how many ordinary martial artists will die? Do you know about demonic beasts? Actually, there were no demonic beasts in the god realm at the beginning, only spirit beasts. In ancient times, they were all spiritual beasts, but in ancient times, because of the fiend realm's constant attacks, under the influence of the demonic aura, all the spiritual beasts were demonized and slowly became demonic beasts. So, demonic beasts are spirit beasts, and they were demonized by the demonic aura. Yi Qinghan sighed. No wonder the low-level demonic beasts were the same as the low-level demons. Their eyes were bloodshot, they had no intelligence, and they attacked anyone they saw. Only after cultivating to a high level would one have spiritual wisdom. This was basically the same as a demon. However, the spirit beasts in the Myriad God Cave did not have such a situation. After all, there was actually such a story. Yi Qinghan pondered for a moment and recalled Kid's words. Puzzled, he asked, "Plain entrance? Where is the entrance? Does the entrance represent the exit of the divine world's plane?" Of course, the entrance is also the exit. Outside the exit is a very magical place. I went there once, and it was there that I broke through to the sovereign level. Kid's eyes shone with a profound light, as if recalling the past. He said with some emotion, "After leaving the divine world's plane, it is also a plane. That plane is several times larger than the divine world, but no one lives there. That plane is connected to countless planes, just like the center of this world. It is the center of all the planes. If you want to go to another plane, you have to go to that plane. We call that plane the plane battlefield. It is also called the hell plane." Yi Qinghan's body shook. His face was full of surprise. Lord Devour had told him that there were many planes outside the divine world, but he did not say much. Hence, he knew nothing about the matters outside the divine world. He did not even know many secrets of the divine world. Now he finally knew. Outside the divine world's plane, there was a hell plane. That plane was uninhabited. It was a transit point that connected the entire world. The hell plane is called the hell plane because there are mountains of corpses just like hell. For billions of years, no one knows how many people died there. However, I am sure that the number of people who died there is several times more than the total population of the divine world. Do you think that place is hell? Kid whispered again. His voice was a little fearful, a little weak, but there was also a faint excitement. It was very contradictory. Yi Qinghan's face changed again. How many people were there in the divine world? At the very least, it was in the trillions. But the population of the hell plane was several times that of the divine world. Those who could go to the hell plane were not low-level warriors. There was no doubt about this. But why did so many experts die there? Right. Yi Qinghan's eyes lit up, and he quickly asked, "The plane battlefield? That's the battlefield?" Kid nodded and said firmly, "Yes. That is the battlefield, The battlefield of the plane wars. The battlefield of the various planes. Plane wars. Yi Qinghan's eyes were frighteningly bright. No wonder Kid was fearful and excited when he talked about it. A planar war. The top elites of each plane fought there. All kinds of races, all kinds of strongest forces, fought against each other directly. Just thinking about it made one's blood boil. Big brother, can you explain the plane wars to me in detail? Yi Qinghan's eyes shone with hope. It was just like when he was in the mortal world, listening to Elder Lu talk about the divine world. Kid laughed. This was what it meant to be a newborn calf that was not afraid of a tiger. He was just about to explain in detail to Yi Qinghan when the smile on his face suddenly froze. Finally, he smiled helplessly and said, "Little Han, it's not that I don't want to tell you, but Master has sent a message. I can't tell you these things now. Cultivate well and ask Master in the future." Yi Qinghan was just excited and ready to listen attentively, but he did not expect Kid to stop talking. He smiled bitterly. Of course, he knew that Lord Devour had sent a message. Lord Devour had always been like this. Only when Yi Qinghan's strength reached a certain level would he tell him some things. Although it was somewhat dull, Yi Qinghan was still secretly excited. It seemed that he had to cultivate well for a period of time. In Lord Devour's eyes, his strength was probably not even qualified to know about the plane war god, let alone go to the plane battlefield or other planes. Kid and Yi Qinghan chatted for a while, then got up and left. Because of Lord Devour's message, Kid kept some of the secrets of the divine world, as well as the matters of the monarchs. This made Yi Qinghan very depressed. He was a little regretful. After talking for so long, he did not even know the entrances and exits of the divine world. After Kid left, Yi Qinghan stood alone outside the small hall's window for a long time. He secretly made up his mind. It seemed that he had to cultivate well and continuously comprehend the nomological laws to reach the venerable realm and the ninth grade realm. He had an inexplicable feeling that if his nomological laws reached the ninth grade, he would probably know a big secret from Lord Devour, or from the War Emperor. Chapter 1008. Soul-devouring city, rooftop. Under the beautiful grape trellis, a fiery red figure was still quietly reading a book. The clouds in the sky were rolling and scattering, and the tides of the wandering sea seemed to have nothing to do with her. Lord Devour wore a calm face. The green grape leaves, the black grapevines, and the dark red grapes complemented each other, which didn't look out of place. Quite the contrary, they seemed to blend together. At the entrance of the rooftop, Madame Gio, who was wearing a snow-white robe, walked up. She looked at them, revealing a peaceful smile. Every time she saw this scene, Madame Gio felt a sense of peace and harmony in her heart. Swoosh! Space fluctuated. At the same time, Lord Devour put down his book and received a light blue drink from Madame Gio. Then he took a sip. "Greetings, monarch!" Madame Gio turned around, slightly bending her body as she smiled at the newcomer. A man in an elegant white robe appeared on the rooftop. He nodded to Madame Gio and then bowed to Lord Devour. "Greetings, Lord. Sit. You don't need to greet me in the future." Lord Devour didn't turn his head. He just said faintly, without any emotion. The corners of Jida's mouth rose, and the smile on his face became warmer. He knew that his effort and harvest had gone beyond his estimation. Lord Devour had approved of him. Jida didn't stand on ceremony. He walked over and sat down in front of Lord Devour. Then he said faintly, but his voice wasn't flattering. Instead, he sounded a little friendly. "Sir, Little Han has reached level 9. Why didn't you tell him something? It seems he doesn't know much about the level 9 realm. From what I see, his attacks seem to be primitive and brute force. It's not time yet." Lord Devour lifted his face to look at Jida. Strictly speaking, his level 9 realm isn't level 9. He was just a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse. He took a shortcut. He's like a small tree with an unstable foundation. His current task is to build a strong foundation. Otherwise, this good seedling will be destroyed. If he doesn't build a strong foundation, what if he builds a skyscraper? Do you want him to walk the same path as you and I did? Yeah, right? Little Han is indeed a good seedling, cultivating for 100 years to reach such a cultivation level. I'm afraid that even in the hundreds of planes, there are only a few prodigies like him. Kid nodded. He finally understood Lord Devour's good intentions. Only by building a solid foundation could he go further. Even if he and Lord Devour didn't have a solid foundation, they wouldn't be able to make any progress in this lifetime, unless they had a heaven-defying chance. Besides, Lord Devour put down his cup, speaking begrudgingly. I don't want to teach him how to use space power, and you don't need to teach him. He is a piece of unpolished jade. All we can give him is the right direction. As for the specific path ahead, he needs to walk it himself. How far he can go will depend on his luck. Jita looked at Lord Devour with admiration. What kind of master could bring up what kind of disciple? The way Devour taught his disciples seemed irresponsible, as he didn't care about them at all. Perhaps the average disciple wouldn't be able to learn anything and wouldn't have any great achievements. However, if there was a disciple with innate talent and great fortune, he would surpass the master. The master could lead the way, but the cultivation depended on the individual. If he gave the disciple the right direction, he could study and ponder it himself. That was how he could bring up an amazing disciple. Take this. All of a sudden, Lord Devour threw a blue jade talisman to Jita. The blue jade talisman was diamond-shaped, with complicated patterns crisscrossing on it. At first glance, one could tell that it wasn't an ordinary item. Jita asked suspiciously, "Sir, this is a life-saving jade talisman. If you're in danger, just crush it. No matter when, it can transport you away. Anytime," Lord Devour said faintly. He glanced at the excited Jita and revealed a smile. "Since you've joined my force, I have to protect your life." "Thank you, sir." Jita stood up excitedly. He wanted to kneel to express his gratitude, but after thinking about Lord Devour's instruction, he bowed slightly. Lord Devour had made it clear. Anytime. Anytime. The meaning of this sentence was too heavy. You don't need to act like this. We have the same enemy. Of course, I will think of a way out for you. Lord Devour lowered his head and didn't look at Jita anymore. Jita sighed deeply. His excited expression became dispirited again. He said sadly, "Sir, can we defeat him? Where there is a will, there is a way. If we don't do it, we will never be able to achieve it. If we do it, at least we will try our best. Even if we fail, we won't regret it. You have to believe in Little Han." Lord Devour's tone was still indifferent, as if he was talking about something insignificant that had nothing to do with him. Jita looked at Lord Devour. He was infected by his strong confidence, and his face glowed with glory. He nodded and said, "Sir, I'll leave now. Recently, the evil stream is stirring again." Lord Devour didn't raise his head. He waved his hand, picked up the book, and started to read quietly. Madame Gio was listening quietly, but she couldn't understand what was going on. Her competence was low, and she didn't like to care about many things. It was also why Lord Devour liked her. Madame Gio didn't care about the big things, but she cared about the small things. She said softly, "Sir, in 3 days, we will go to the Dripping Spring Mansion to propose marriage, right?" Lord Devour lifted his head, a rare smile on his face. "Later, you go to the Fiery Dragon City and bring that little bastard Xiao He back. He's going to get married, but he's still like a kid." "All right, the palace is almost finished, right?" "Yeah, almost. It's luxurious and beautiful." Madame Gio was proud of herself. This palace was built by her, and it was exceptionally beautiful. Then she said reluctantly, "Anyway, I think young Master Xiao He won't stay here for a long time, right? I heard that Little Han is building a palace for Xiao He in the Investiture God Valley. Young Master Xiao He will go to the Fiery Dragon City with Miss Shui Air." "Ha!" Lord Devour's face was affectionate. As long as he's happy, he can stay anywhere. Xiao He is the young master of the soul-devouring palace. The soul-devouring city must build a palace for him. You should go. Tell Little Han to come to my place 3 days later." Madame Ju nodded, then teleported to the Fiery Dragon City. Under Lei Zhun's lead, They entered the Investiture God Valley through the special teleportation formation in the City Master's mansion. As soon as they entered the Investiture God Valley, even though she had seen so many grand scenes and luxurious palaces, she was astounded by the grand palaces in front of her. Gazing at them for a long time, she forced a smile and mumbled, "It's all because of little Han. That's why he's so rich." The divine stones used to build this palace are enough to build several fiery dragon cities. Chapter 1009. The scenery inside the Seal God Valley was picturesque. The spirit-gathering array automatically absorbed the heaven and earth spirit chi within a radius of 1,000,000 miles, causing the heaven and earth spirit chi inside to reach a terrifying level. When the heaven and earth spirit chi was too dense, all kinds of flowers and trees were nourished and looked especially beautiful. All kinds of spirit fruits could be found all over the Seal God Valley. It was like the legendary Immortal Valley. Yi Qingyu and Yi Qingwu were fine. They even got people to dig a deep pit in the valley and let Yi Qinghan control the restrictions to maintain the valley's original appearance. They also used countless spatial rings to bring in endless river water to fill a small lake in the city. They also caught some wild beasts in the wild and completely turned the Sealed God Valley into a lively immortal world. At this moment, more than 100,000 martial artists in the valley were building countless big palaces. Lord Jiu counted and realized that there were 3 big palaces and countless small palaces. Such an immortal world and such palaces made Lord Jiu feel like he was looking at the ancient heavenly court. Swish! Numerous silhouettes flew over quickly. Other than Yu Qing Chung, Yi Yaoji, and Yi Yaoji who were in seclusion, all of Yi Qinghan's women were here. In front of them was Xiao He, who had a face full of excitement and a pair of quick-witted eyes. "Jiu, why are you here?" Xiao He said to Lord Jiu casually. Then he pointed to a big palace on the left and said, "Look, this is the palace that boss built for me. What do you think? Isn't it grand?" "Greetings, Lord Jiu, Uncle Lei Jun, Yi Qingwu, Yi Qingyu, fireworks, and the others also flew over. Unlike Xiao He, they didn't dare to call him Jiu. Fireworks held Lei Jun's hand intimately with a sweet look on her face. There was a small palace here that belonged to her, and her wedding with Yi Qinghan was coming soon. Grand, very grand. Lord Jiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It seemed that this young master had built that palace in the Soul Devourer manor for nothing. He had decided to stay here forever. Anyway, it wasn't strange. Xiao He and Master Devourer didn't have a deep relationship. Moreover, Master Devourer was his senior. With his character, if Xiao He stayed in the soul-devouring palace for a long time, he would go crazy. Moreover, with Little Han here, no one would have the guts to cause trouble in Flame Dragon City, right? Buzz! Suddenly, there was a ripple in space. Yi Qinghan and Yao Ji appeared beside everyone. Yi Qinghan nodded at Lord Jiu indifferently. Beside him, Yao Ji also nodded casually. With their statuses, if they bowed to Lord Jiu again, Lord Jiu would probably not dare to accept it. Madame Jiu then told Xiao He what Devourer had told him. When he heard that they were going back to the soul-devouring manor, he was a little unhappy. Just as he was about to say something, he saw Yi Qinghan glaring at him. He immediately shriveled up and didn't dare to say anything. After chatting for a while, Lei Jun left with Lord Jiu and Xiao He. Yao Ji looked around at the beautiful scenery and the restrictions that were everywhere in the Seal God Valley. She smiled at Yi Qinghan and said, "Little Han, I plan to stay in the Seal God Valley for a long time after the palace is built. The restrictions of the War Imperial Palace are too complicated and profound. I plan to study the 2 restriction books that you gave me and refer to the restrictions here. My learning speed will definitely be very fast." "Okay, no problem." Yi Qinghan agreed readily. However, he was a little confused and asked, "Yao Ji, why do you like these restrictions so much?" Yi Qingwu, Yi Qingyu, and the others were also very confused. These restrictions seemed very powerful. For example, the restrictions in the Seal God Valley could suppress venerables. However, restrictions were dead things. Moreover, they were extremely complicated. Cultivators cultivated themselves and increased their strength. Although this thing was powerful, it sounded like a heretical way of doing things. You don't understand. Yao Ji smiled mysteriously. Then, she raised her beautiful face and looked at the sky above the Seal God Valley. She said, restrictions were called secret techniques in ancient times. They were once extremely powerful. It was said that when one comprehended restrictions to a certain level, they could set up super restrictions that could kill a ninth-grade cultivator. I can feel that I have reached my limit by breaking through to the venerable tier. I probably won't have a chance to break through to the ninth grade in this lifetime. Therefore, I plan to start with restrictions and become the legendary Supreme Restriction Master. Of course, I also like to study these things. Kill sovereigns. Everyone looked at each other. Sovereigns were the symbol of invincibility. They could actually be killed by some restrictions. Yi Qinghan thought for a moment. He looked at Yao Ji encouragingly and said, as long as you like it, go and learn. I believe that you will definitely reach unprecedented heights. There were 3,000 great Daos. Perhaps the path of restrictions was suitable for Yao Ji. Brother, suddenly, Yi Qingyu said embarrassedly. Yi Qinghan turned around and rubbed Yi Qingyu's head with a smile. He said, you little girl, you are always like this. Why are you being so polite with me? Yi Qingyu looked at Yi Qinghan and then at Yao Ji. She was even more embarrassed. She said shyly, can I learn restrictions from Sister Yao Ji? But I am very stupid. I am afraid that I won't be able to learn it well. Silly sister, what is there to be embarrassed about? If you want to learn, I will teach you. Yao Ji pulled Yi Qingyu over and said in a reproachful tone. Yi Qingyu was the most good-tempered and amiable among Yi Qinghan's women. Moreover, everyone knew that Yi Qingyu held a high position in Yi Qinghan's heart. Of course, he treated her especially well. Yi Qinghan looked at Yi Qingyu's pure eyes thoughtfully. Yi Qingyu had a gentle temperament. She didn't like to fight for anything. She asked for nothing. Over the years, he hadn't paid much attention to her. She had become a god emperor and had a long lifespan. However, she must have been lonely and lost. He thought about it for a while. Then his face suddenly became serious. He looked at Yi Qingyu. Yi Qingwu, Yinling, fireworks, blue rain, and Yao Ji. He said seriously, little Yu's idea is good. Yao Ji's hobby is also good. I don't have any demands on you. I just want you to live well. You can do whatever you want. The most important thing is that you have a goal to pursue. That way, you won't feel empty. For example, Qingsheng and Yao Rao like to cultivate, so they often go into seclusion to increase their strength. For example, Yao Ji likes to study restrictions so you can study them. No matter what you do, I will support you. As long as you feel happy. When a person didn't have enough to eat and couldn't wear warm clothes, they definitely wouldn't want to travel abroad. However, if one's material foundation was sufficient, then they had to have a certain spiritual pursuit. Otherwise, their life would be very lost. Then, they would become numb. Yi Qinghan was very clear about this. Now that he was a monarch, he could give his women a comfortable life. However, he didn't want his women to be around him all day. They had to have their own pursuits. That way, their lives would be full. Only then would they be able to maintain their lively personalities. They wouldn't let time erase their individual flavors. Moreover, the lifespan of a god realm warrior was infinitely long. Even Yi Qingyu and the others, who had become god emperors by refining god crystals, had a lifespan of millions of years. Most importantly, Yi Qinghan already had a clear goal. So in the future, he would often go into seclusion. He wanted his women to be able to live a wonderful life, even when he wasn't around. Yi Qinghan's words caused the eyes of the women to flicker with complex emotions. They all fell into a contemplative silence and began to think about their own lives and their future path. A life without pursuits was an incomplete life. Yi Qinghan's eyes were also thoughtful. At this moment, he had also determined his own path and his pursuits. He wanted to become stronger and stronger until he finally reached the peak. Chapter 10:10. 3 days later, Yi Qinghan brought Lei Zhen to the Soul Devourer Palace. As soon as he appeared on the square of the Soul Devourer Palace, he saw Emperor Yu and many senior elders of the Soul Devourer city, including Xiao He. They were all waiting for him. Xiao He was wearing a formal attire today, which made him look like a gentleman. The black embroidered long robe made him seem like an elegant and peerless young master. However, his shifty eyes broke his image. "Ah, not bad. Xiao He, you look good in this robe." "Yeah, this hairstyle is good." Yi Qinghan walked over and patted Xiao He's shoulder. When this kid had transformed, his face was already more handsome than Yi Qinghan's. Now that he was dressed up, he looked energetic. "Buzz!" Lord Devour's red figure appeared in the air. Looking at Yi Qinghan, he didn't wait for him to greet, waving his hand. "Let's go to Dripping Spring City." A group of more than 10 people walked into the teleportation formation, all of them smiling brightly. Even Lord Devour had a faint smile on his face. Xiao He's smile was the brightest. He looked like a fool, smiling unceasingly. After they were teleported to Dripping Spring City, Yi Qinghan saw a sea of people. The entire square, the streets, and even the lofts were crowded. He could see several million people. They all stood in silence, not making a sound. When the light of the teleportation formation faded, they all kneeled down and shouted, "Greetings, sir." Only one person didn't kneel. He bent his body slightly, smiling faintly. "Sir, Little Han guys, let's go to the Dripping Water Pavilion. Please. Let's go." Lord Devour nodded faintly. He didn't say anything, and the faint smile on his face didn't diminish. However, Venerable Li Quan still explained, "Sir, they organized it spontaneously. I don't blame you. Although I don't like crowds, it's better to be lively today." Lord Devour slightly shook his head. Venerable Li Quan could finally ease his mind. The group flew into the Dripping Water Pavilion. Li He, Li Xiaosha, and the important figures of the Li family were already waiting outside the hall. All of them were extremely excited. After today, Li Shuai and Xiao He could be considered to have officially confirmed their relationship. The Li family had officially become the in-laws of the Devour family and the Yi family. Perhaps Li Shuai and Yi Qinghan wouldn't feel anything. But everyone in the Li family knew that this was the Li family's most glorious moment. Xiao He's identity was unique. He had a close relationship with the two kings, and he was the closest person to Lord Devour and Yi Qinghan. After today, the Li clan would officially rely on the two monarchs. As long as the two monarchs didn't die, the Li clan would exist forever and be glorious for generations to come. Lord Devour disliked these courteous things. Even when Yi Qinghan went to Rain Butterfly Island and Longyang City to propose marriage, she didn't go. Today was Xiao He's big day. In fact, the most important day in the divine world wasn't the wedding, but the marriage proposal. That was why Lord Devour was here, smiling the whole time. However, she didn't talk much. Emperor Yu, Yi Qinghan, and Venerable Li Quan were the only ones chatting. In the end, Lord Jiu presented the betrothal gifts, which were 3 supreme divine artifacts. She stood up and left with Lord Jiu after exchanging some pleasantries. Everyone knew her temperament, so they didn't blame her. Li Quan also knew that Lord Devour had given her a lot of face by sitting here for several hours with a smile on his face. As soon as Lord Devour left, the atmosphere in the room became more lively. Yi Qinghan never acted like a prodigal in front of his friends. Moreover, the people here had watched him grow up, so they didn't feel awkward. After Yi Qinghan's jokes, the atmosphere became livelier. Little Black, Little Sha, and the others didn't like this kind of atmosphere. With their elders around, they felt uncomfortable, so they secretly ran away. The younger generation of the Li family followed the two of them to the Black Water Pavilion. As the representative of the Flame Dragon City, Lei Jun put on a solemn face. He started to ask Venerable Li Quan sincerely, "Lord Li Quan, how should I continue to cultivate after becoming a venerable? Please don't hesitate to teach me." Lei Jun was a little depressed. After breaking through to the venerable realm outside the Soul Emperor Island, he was at a loss. However, he was too embarrassed to ask Lord Devour, an ethereal monarch. Today, he could sincerely ask Venerable Li Quan for advice. Li Quan had broken through the venerable realm several 100,000 years ago. Lei Zhen's words shook everybody's spirit. Even Yi Qinghan looked at Venerable Li Quan with interest. The people here were the eminent elders of the Li clan and the soul-devouring city. Most of them were at the 7th grade. If they could understand the cultivation of the Venerable Realm, it would be beneficial for them to break through to the Venerable Realm. Venerable Li Quan pondered for a while. He looked at the others and said, "You all know that comprehending 3 high-level mysteries can help you break through to the God Emperor realm. Comprehending 4 high-level mysteries will make you a 6th grade war god. Comprehending 5 high-level mysteries will make you a 7th grade expert. Comprehending 6 high-level mysteries will make you a venerable." It's easy for a warrior to comprehend high-level mysteries at the beginning. However, the more high-level mysteries you comprehend, the more difficult it becomes. From the peak of the 7th grade to the venerable realm, there is a barrier that is very difficult to break through. No one can help you with this. If you comprehend it, you will comprehend it. If you don't, you will remain at the peak of the 7th grade for the rest of your life. Lei Zhen, you should know this better. From the peak of the 7th grade to the 8th grade, actually, comprehending high-level mysteries isn't enough. You must comprehend a Tao. Tao. Everyone was puzzled. Even Yi Qinghan was puzzled. Lei Zhen opened his mouth and said, "That's right, Tao. In fact, I was on the verge of mastering my 6th high-level mystery many years ago. However, I couldn't break through the final step. On the way to the Star Sea, I was prepared to die. I wanted to die with firework, so that she wouldn't feel lonely. It was a feeling of emptiness, a feeling of having no desires or desires. Then, I broke through at that moment." Venerable Li Quan nodded and said, "Tao is actually a very general term. Moreover, every venerable's comprehension of Tao is different. Little Han, do you still remember when Flame Dragon City was being built? Because of your words, Emperor Xiong of Smoke Beacon Manor suddenly comprehended Tao and broke through to the venerable realm. Tao is something that is very difficult to explain. It can be the pursuit of love. It could be a kind of killing intent. It could be a kind of resentment or a kind of obsession. In any case, there are 3,000 grade Taos. If you want to become a true venerable, you must cultivate your heart. Remember, it's not cultivating the soul, but the heart." Everyone's thoughts were firmly engraved in their hearts what the two of them had said. Although they couldn't understand it now, if they were touched at some point, they would have a very high chance of comprehension. Venerable Li Quan waited for everyone to digest his words before continuing. At the moment of breaking through to the supremacy realm, every supremacy's soul will go to a very mystical place. We like to call it the primal chaos realm. In there, the supremacy's soul will be strengthened. At the same time, the primal chaos realm will bestow you with origin energy. This origin energy will condense with your soul. This source power will condense with your soul, and a venerable will have source power. Venerable Li Quan paused for a moment to let everyone remember his words before continuing. Venerables have 2 methods to continue obtaining source power and increase their strength. The first is to continue cultivating your heart. When your heart reaches a certain level, your soul will continue to enter the primal chaos realm and obtain even more source power. The other method is like Little Han, continue to comprehend the laws. After the venerable realm, high-level mysteries are very difficult to comprehend. However, if you can comprehend one more high-level mystery, then you will be able to touch the laws of heaven and earth. A phenomenon will appear and bestow source power. When Little Han was in the God King realm, he was bestowed source power because he comprehended a very special law's profound mystery. Therefore, there are actually 2 difficulties on the path of venerable cultivation, but both are extremely difficult. One is to cultivate the heart, and the other is to continue comprehending the laws. Chapter 10:11. It is indeed extremely difficult. Lei Zhen let out a long sigh and said faintly, "Before I broke through to God Emperor, it took me about 100 years to comprehend the first 3 high-grade mysteries. After God Emperor, the 4th high-grade mystery took me nearly 1,000 years, the 5th 3,000 years, and the 6th high-grade mystery took me a whole 6,000 years. If I hadn't gone to save Firework, I don't even know when I would have broken through." Lei Jun's words made everyone blush with shame. Lei Jun's talent was not as abnormal as Yi Qinghan's, but it was still top-notch in the divine realm. He reached grade 7 in less than 10,000 years, and even broke through to venerable after another 10,000 years. His talent was top-notch. On the path of cultivation, the faster one broke through in the early stages, the further one could go in the later stages. Many of those present had cultivated for more than 100,000 years, and some had cultivated for tens of thousands of years, even close to 1,000,000 years. Many of them spent tens of thousands of years on the fourth high-grade mystery, but Lei Jun only spent 1,000 years. This was the difference. Yi Qinghan's brows relaxed slightly, and a doubt in his heart was resolved. He had always thought that venerable source energy was bestowed by heaven and earth like him, but many venerables, like Lei Jun, did not have any phenomenon when they broke through. Moreover, phenomena did not appear often in the divine realm. So there was a saying that becoming a venerable would not cause a phenomenon, but the soul would go to a very mysterious place, the primal chaos realm. The soul could leave the body. What kind of place was the primal chaos realm? Yi Qinghan looked at Lei Jun and Li Quan, not asking any questions. He knew that the two would not be able to answer this question. It seemed like he would have to wait until he broke through to the venerable realm before he would have the chance to come into contact with it. And Li Quan coughed lightly, drawing everyone's attention, and then continued, "There is something else that the Misty Sovereign told me. I hope that none of you will leak it out." Everyone's expressions quickly turned solemn. At the same time, Honorable Li Quan unleashed his celestial domain. Yi Qinghan also began to sense the surrounding spatial energy. After ensuring that no one was eavesdropping, Honorable Li Quan spoke solemnly. This is the conclusion that the Misty Realm Sovereign and the other sovereigns came to after much discussion. It is a conclusion on how to break through to level 9. Li Quan's words caused everyone to become incomparably excited. Even Yi Qinghan's brows furrowed slightly. Perhaps in the eyes of outsiders, he was already at level 9. In truth, he knew that he still needed to break through in the nomological realm and become a true grade 9. He wanted to improve his strength to the next level. It was Lord Devour's request, the Battle Emperor's request, and also Shi Yan's request. Everyone knows that one needs to comprehend the ultimate mystery to reach the 9th level. Of course, there's still another way, and that is to comprehend the eternity of space like Little Han. However, Little Han can clearly tell you that aside from him, no one else can succeed on this path. That's why I'm talking about comprehending and fusing the ultimate profound mysteries. Li Quan paused for a moment and continued to say, ultimate profound mysteries. Everyone knows that it is when a certain elemental's 5 basic profound mysteries all fuse together, reaching the great circle of perfection of the laws. Perhaps many people think that it is very simple, thinking that a high-grade profound mystery is the fusion of 4 basic mysteries. Since 4 can be fused, then one more shouldn't be too difficult, right? There are even many fearless people who try to fuse the ultimate mystery at the Divine General tier or Divine King tier. They dream of reaching the peak of level 9 in a single step. I can tell you clearly now, to fuse the ultimate mystery, you must first become a venerable. If you can't break through to the venerable tier, then you will never be able to break through to level 9. Ah? Li Quan's words shocked everyone present, and their eyes flickered thoughtfully. No one doubted Venerable Li Quan's words, and the more they thought about it, the more they felt that it made sense. In the immortal world, the number of people who could reach level 9 was as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. In the billions of years of the immortal world, something like a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse had only happened once, and it happened to Yi Qinghan. Not only was it unprecedented, but it would never happen again. Now that Venerable Li Quan said that Venerable was the foundation to break through to level 9, it was easy to explain. Although there were many venerables in the immortal world, they weren't as common as cabbages or radishes. Lei Jun's eyes were as hot as the demonic sun in the sky. His innate talent wasn't bad, and he was at least one of the best in the last several 100,000 years. He had a high chance of walking on the path to level 9. If he couldn't get an answer from Venerable Li Quan today, he would ask Little Han to bring him to see Jida and Lord Devour. Venerable Li Quan felt everyone's hot gaze, and he smiled, continuing, "The ultimate mystery is very hard to comprehend." The Misty Monarch said that he had accidentally obtained a great opportunity when his lifespan was almost up, and that was how he broke through. He said that there were two ways to comprehend the ultimate mystery. First, after becoming a venerable, one would no longer comprehend the high-grade mystery, but focus on fusing the ultimate mystery. This was an unconventional way. Either one broke through to monarch, or they would forever be the lowest venerable. However, the Misty Monarch said that this way had a higher chance of success. The second way was to continue comprehending the high-grade mystery, and not the ultimate mystery. However, it would be more and more difficult to fuse them. This way was because one had to constantly comprehend the principle of this element. As one's comprehension of this principle became deeper and more thorough, it would erupt in the end, and one would naturally comprehend the ultimate mystery and break through to level 9. This way is more difficult, but it's safe because one's strength can increase continuously. Even if one can't break through, he can still become an expert among the venerables. Everyone sighed, and even Yi Qinghan sighed. It seemed like it wasn't easy to break through to monarch. Everyone present, including Venerable Li Quan, looked at Yi Qinghan, sighing emotionally. The road was long, and they still had a long way to go. There was only one Yi Qinghan. Of course. A moment later, Venerable Li Quan said again, "Actually, there is another way. For example, there is a venerable that everyone is familiar with, the first venerable of the continent, Saintly Sky Venerable. He is walking on this path." Saintly Sky Venerable. Everyone present was shocked. This was a venerable that rarely appeared, and many people didn't even know his name. They only knew that the Misty Monarch had a venerable under him. He was in seclusion all year round, but his battle prowess had always been number one among the venerables of the continent. The Misty Monarch said that Saintly Sky Venerable's cultivation path was even more devious, because after he became a venerable, he no longer comprehended principle, and instead focused on cultivating his mind. If one day you see a beggar on the street who could instantly kill a venerable with a flick of his sleeves, don't be surprised. The Misty Monarch said that after Li Kong's green hell battle armor was shattered by Little Han, Saintly Sky Venerable could instantly kill him in 3 moves. In fact, his overall strength could even be compared to Little Han. Furthermore, the monarch said that his strength could possibly become even stronger. What? This? Everyone looked at Venerable Li Quan in disbelief. Even Yi Qinghan was astonished. There was a venerable that could fight against a monarch? If it wasn't for the fact that these words came from Li Quan's mouth and came from Jida, who had been a monarch for hundreds of thousands of years, everyone would have scoffed and treated it as a fart. Venerable Li Quan didn't care about the shock and astonishment in everyone's eyes. He stood up, looked through the door, and looked at the slowly descending demonic sun. He sighed deeply. It's actually not bad to walk an unconventional path. When one thing is cultivated to the extreme, it is also a different kind of strength. Maybe I should walk this path. Chapter 10:12. Li Quan's words had benefited everybody a lot. Yi Qinghan now had a clearer path ahead of him. Originally, Lord Devour had only asked him to comprehend and fuse the high-level mysteries, which was the same as giving him a direction. However, Li Quan's words allowed him to clearly see how many paths there were, as well as where each path led to and what obstacles there would be along the way. These words were actually even more important to Lei Zhen. He had just reached an intersection and didn't even know where the path ahead was. Li Quan had clearly pointed out a few paths for him, and now it was up to him to take them. Lei Zhen respectfully bowed to Li Quan and Yi Qinghan before leaving alone. He entered the transportation formation and directly returned to Flame Dragon City. No one blamed him for being impolite. This moment was extremely important to him. He needed to calm down and think about it. Yi Qinghan and the others didn't talk about cultivation anymore. It was enough to give some pointers and give a general direction. The specifics still depended on himself. Yi Qinghan represented Soul Eater City and Flame Dragon City to decide on the date of the wedding with Li Quan. Then they chatted for a bit before leaving Li Quan City. According to the customs of the divine realm, proposing a marriage was a big day. Comparatively speaking, the wedding wasn't that important. After the marriage proposal, it was more or less the same as marrying someone else. All kinds of relationships and benefits had been confirmed. All that was left was the situation. Xiaohei also came back. Of course, Xiaohei's intention was to stay in Blackwater Pavilion until the wedding. That day on Wanderer Island, he didn't succeed. Xiaohei was still brooding over it. He learned a lot from Yi Qinghan and was preparing to go all out. But of course, he was sent flying by Li Shui's kick. Returning to Flame Dragon City, Yi Qinghan felt his body relax. He had finally completed a major matter. The following days became more leisurely. Xiaohei's wedding was set in 3 months, while Yi Qinghan's wedding was set to be with a Moon Queen, Blue Rain, Yinling, and fireworks. They would all be marrying into the Yi family. Blue Rain's parents and Cherry Blossoms were in Fire Dragon City, so they only made a symbolic marriage proposal. Yi Qinghan had specially given a large courtyard in the city to Blue Rain's parents to live in. The elders of the city had also arranged for a few guards and maids. After the sealed Valley of the Gods was completed, they would all be brought in to live with Blue Rain. For this small wedding, Yi Qinghan didn't plan on making a big deal out of it. The female side didn't have any objections either. Blue Rain's parents liked Yi Qinghan very much and listened to everything he said. Lei Zhen, of course, had no objections. Fireworks and Yi Qinghan had known each other before he had. Flying Rain was even more delighted. Yinling had always liked women, but this was the first time she had ever liked a man. The one she liked was Yi Qinghan. She even woke up laughing in the middle of the night. Yi Qinghan's identity was different. If this news were to spread, the entire god realm would be shaken. So, the 3 sides decided that on the day of the wedding, they would sit together and drink some wine and eat some spirit fruits. They all understood Yi Qinghan's character. Not only was this marriage good for fireworks and the others, it was also good for the families. At the very least, they would be able to provide Sealed Valley of the Gods top-grade spirit fruits and holy fruits for free, right? The Sealed Valley of the Gods palaces were completed in half a month. With god stones and people, it was impossible to be slow. There were 3 main palaces and more than 10 smaller palaces. Every woman had one. Yi Qinghan had a main palace, Xiaohei had a main palace, and Yi Sahan had a main palace. In the next half a month, the women happily decorated their palaces. Even the otherworldly Yu Qingcheng came out of seclusion. Yi Qinghan and Xiaohei didn't like this. They felt like they had nothing to do. Seeing the women bustling around, Yi Qinghan stood in front of the grand palaces. He felt like he was standing in the Forbidden City in his previous life. He was like the man sitting on the dragon throne. Although it was a little awkward, he was a little proud. After transmigrating, after 100 years of struggle, his efforts had finally paid off. He was the 7th son of the Yi family. Finally, he could live a life that not only the billions of people in the Fire Dragon continent, but also billions of people in the God realm envied. He looked at his wives, who were smiling like flowers, and clenched his fists. This happy life wasn't easy to come by. He would protect it forever. If anyone wanted to ruin it, he would turn back into the 7th son of the Yi family, who dared to use a stake to knock out the young master of the Yi family. He would risk his life to fight with him. The day of the wedding arrived quickly. Lord Devour didn't come. Lei Kuang and Yu Duanfei came with Emperor Yu. Although Yi Qinghan had purposely sealed off the news, the teleportation array had not stopped for a single moment from dawn until dusk. Not only the big families of the Misty continent, but many big families and monarchs of other continents had also sent their messengers. The square in the Fire Dragon City and the square outside the city were filled with people. Yi Qinghan forced a smile. If they came to give him gifts, he couldn't just reject them, could he? Thus, Lei Zhen, who was the in-law, became busy again. Yi Tianlong's group also represented Yi Qinghan to receive the guests. Eventually, there were too many people who couldn't attend. Lei Kuang, Yu Duanfei, Emperor Yu, and Li Quan had to come. Yi Qinghan's identity was special. and it was a big day. He couldn't receive them personally, could he? Yi Qinghan showed up and exchanged greetings with them. Then he accompanied Jida to drink in the Seal God Valley. Not long after that, Leijin sent a message to Yi Qinghan, asking him to receive someone. He heard that it was Li Quan who had asked him to do so. The messenger of the ice and snow islands? Yi Qinghan arched his brows. Except for the Star Ocean, all the monarchs had sent their representatives. Yi Qinghan had never heard of this ice and snow island. Why did Li Quan want him to receive them personally? Jida's scholarly face was surprised. He stood up, pulling Yi Qinghan to the teleportation formation outside the palace. While walking, he said, "Let's go. You and I will receive them personally." The island master of the ice and snow island is immeasurably strong. He's even stronger than Lord Diawu. Great Knight Supreme, Yi Qinghan remembered the Arctic land and the South Sea Green Mountain that Lord Devour had mentioned. This ice and snow island seemed to be one of those two places. Stronger than Lord Devour? Of course, Yi Qinghan knew what it meant. Lord Devour's strength was at the upper grade 9. At this moment, in the main hall of the city lord's mansion, the patriarchs of the big families were also frightened by the so-called ice and snow island's messenger. It was a woman. Her beauty was suffocating. She was so cold that people would feel cold all over their bodies. She was a woman who made Li Quan, one of the top 5 rankers of the Misty continent, respect her so much. She stood quietly in the middle of the hall, ignoring the hundreds of gazes in the hall. She held a white jade box in her hand, which made her look like an ice sculpture. She had teleported here. After she came in, she only said one sentence. Then, she kept silent. "I'm here on the order of the Ice Queen to congratulate the Frigid Knight's sovereign on his wedding." When Yi Qinghan and Jida appeared together, all the big shots in the hall stood up and saluted them. However, the woman still didn't move. When Yi Qinghan smiled and went to greet her, the woman handed the box to Yi Qinghan. Then, she said something and teleported away. "The Ice Queen asked me to bring a message. If the Frigid Knight's sovereign has time, you can visit the Ice and Snow Island at any time. The Ice and Snow Island is in the Arctic land. Farewell." The woman's words scared the patriarchs of the big families in the hall again. They didn't know much about the Ice and Snow Island, but many of them knew about the Arctic land. That was because the Arctic land was ranked 3rd among the 4 great death traps of the continent. Some people even said that the ranking of the Arctic land was wrong. It was as dangerous as the Evil Abyss, which was ranked 1st. Chapter 10:13. Before Yi Qinghan could express his politeness, the envoy from the Ice and Snow Island had already disappeared. Yi Qinghan could only cup his hands at everyone and enter the Seal God Valley with Jida. "Big brother Jida, what is this?" Yi Qinghan entered the palace and saw Jida looking at the white jade box in his hand with envy. Yi Qinghan couldn't help but ask curiously, "Good stuff." Jida swallowed a mouthful of saliva. At their level, there were very few treasures that could move them. However, he was still extremely tempted by the items from the Ice and Snow Island. He grabbed the holy fruit on the table and directly threw it into his mouth, eating it as if it was an ordinary fruit. He did not explain anything and only said, "You can refine that treasure after you break through to the supremacy realm in the nomological realm. You will know how magical this thing is." Since Jida said that, Yi Qinghan didn't say anything else and kept it carefully. Seeing Jida eat the holy fruit like it was a normal fruit and throwing away his scholarly temperament, Yi Qinghan was sure of one thing. It seemed like the rumor that Jida was the leader of the god bandits in the past wasn't wrong. Mutant fruits and holy fruits were the specialties of the Seal God Valley. Yi Qinghan didn't care, but to Jida, they might not be high-grade treasures, but they were still rare items. Yi Qinghan started again. He smiled and asked, "Big brother, is this Ice Queen really so powerful? I can't tell you more." Jida might have eaten something from Yi Qinghan, but he wasn't going to be soft. He laughed and said, "I can only tell you one thing. Build a good relationship with the Ice Queen. Even if you slap Nke, he won't dare to retaliate. If you can sleep with her, you can do whatever you want in the divine world." Damn, so fierce. Yi Qinghan was speechless. It seemed like there were only 10 sovereigns in the divine world on the surface, but there were many crouching tigers and hidden dragons in the dark. Who knew how many fierce people were hidden from the world? The waters of the god world run deep, Yang Qi said. There are a few old geezers in the arcane pocket realms, and they're all very fierce. Little Han, you still have a long way to go. I am old, and the longer a martial artist lives, the harder it is to advance. Don't just focus on enjoying life. Work hard on your cultivation. I sincerely hope that you can step onto the true peak. Kid stood up and sincerely patted Yi Qinghan's shoulder. Then his expression changed and he laughed mischievously. All right, it's your wedding day. A night of spring is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. I won't disturb you any longer. Jito walked very quickly. His relationship with Yi Qinghan had reached this point, so there was no need for formalities. Yi Qinghan sat in the main hall in silence for a moment. Then, his eyes lit up as he stood up and walked towards the side hall. The first one he entered was the Blue Rain Palace. There were 7 or 8 maids in blue robes inside the palace. These were all arranged by Lei Zhen, and Yi Qinghan did not refuse. Yi Qinghan waved his hand to dismiss the maids and walked into Lan Yu's room. Lan Yu was still in her blue robe, and her face was slightly powdered. She looked extremely delicate and beautiful. Lan Yu did not sit on the bed. Instead, she sat in front of the window. From Yi Qinghan's angle, he could see a perfect side profile. Lan Yu noticed that something was wrong and turned around. Her mature and charming face was filled with the joy and shyness of a little girl. Little Han. Before Yi Qinghan could walk over, Lan Yu suddenly walked quickly. Then, a pair of soft hands pressed against Yi Qinghan's chest and pushed him out. This made Yi Qinghan extremely surprised. Lan Yu shyly said, I am an old married couple. You should go to the 2 younger sisters' room. It's fine. It's not like you don't know that men are very strong in this area. Yi Qinghan hugged Lan Yu, but she broke free and looked at Yi Qinghan with incomparable determination. Yi Qinghan was helpless. He could only walk towards the Ling Palace. After the crazy incident at the Lily Cave, although Yi Qinghan had sent many messages and apologized many times, he had never said it in person. Ling acted as if nothing had happened and did not mention a single word about what happened that time. After entering the room, he discovered that Ling was like a beautiful snake, coiled up on the bed. Her devilish figure was perfectly displayed, and there was a faint smile on her face. It was unknown what she was thinking. As soon as Yi Qinghan entered, he immediately met Ling's gaze. The latter leisurely smiled and said, Did you go to Little Sister Fireworks' place? Yi Qinghan shook his head. Just as he was about to say something, Ling's eyes lit up. Her pink tongue slid past her lips as she excitedly said, Quickly, take down Little Sister Firework first. Later, bring her here and we'll play some new tricks. This lady will make you feel good. Really? Yi Qinghan's eyes lit up like a wolf in the night. He rubbed his hands and nodded at Ling. Then, like a bull in heat, he rushed towards the firework palace. Ling was not his woman. If he had any thoughts about his woman, he would be very angry. However, at this moment, he was incomparably excited. Perhaps this was the weakness of human nature. Selfishness was the root of human nature. However, if humans were not selfish, there would be no competition. Without competition, humans would not progress. Without progress, the human race would eventually be destroyed in the surging torrent of history. This was a dead knot that could not be untied. After entering the firework palace, he saw that the interior of the palace was very simple. It had the freshness of a pretty daughter from a humble family, but it also had a bit of spiritual energy. It was very comfortable. Of course, what made Yi Qinghan even more comfortable was Little Firework, who was sitting on the side of the bed with a complicated expression on her face. It was true that when it came to looks, Firework was the most beautiful among Yi Qinghan's women. This was a flawless face with 2 small pink horns on her forehead. Firework's face was enough to instantly kill all the men in the god realm. Firework's figure was exquisite and delicate. However, Her bulging breasts and small but perky buttocks made Yi Qinghan's blood boil. Furthermore, Fireworks' beautiful face was currently flushed due to shyness. This made Yi Qinghan, who had been through a lot, feel a shiver from the depths of his soul. The two of them did not speak. They just stared at each other for a while. Then, Yi Qinghan carried the trembling Firework to the bed and began to gently untie her snow-white palace dress. As the robe slowly unraveled, a jade-white and exquisite body was revealed. Yi Qinghan swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva as the robe on his body turned into powder. Then, he arched his body and gently caressed this body that could make a man go crazy. Her slender legs, smooth abdomen, and full breasts all had traces of his big hands. At the same time, he began to gently kiss her fragrant lips, her jade neck, her snowy peaks. He had done enough foreplay. He waited for Firework to gradually calm down and her body to heat up. Without any hesitation, Yi Qinghan found that paradise and fiercely thrust his spear into it. Boom! At this moment, the two small pink horns on Firework's head suddenly lit up. It was so bright that it was dazzling. Then Firework's body lit up. Following that, a strong bolt of lightning passed through Firework's body and into Yi Qinghan's spear. In an instant, it rushed into Yi Qinghan's body and soul. Yi Qinghan's muscles instantly convulsed and contracted. His hair and fur stood on end, as if he was an unlucky person who had been struck by lightning. His eyes suddenly widened as he fell straight on a Firework's petite and perfect body and fainted. Chapter 10:14. Fireworks did not panic when Yi Qinghan suddenly fainted. She knew that this would happen during the first fusion with a woman who had awakened the Thunder God's bloodline. She just hugged Yi Qinghan tightly, and her tears started to fall silently. When she first saw Yi Qinghan, she did not care. Even when Yi Qinghan saved her from the Whip tribe, she was only grateful. Then, when she met the dwarf and saw Yi Qinghan rush out again, she acknowledged Yi Qinghan a little. What she would remember for the rest of her life was that after Yi Qinghan had saved everyone, he had knelt on the ground and let out a low roar because of the killing intent. Then, like a lone wolf, he had resolutely left. At that moment, her little heart felt that this was a real man. But at that moment, Fireworks only liked this country bumpkin from the material plane. What really moved her was when everyone was killed by Mo Xiao Xiao beside the teleportation portal at Shady Stream. She sat among the corpses, feeling so helpless and lonely. That was when Yi Qinghan's figure appeared again. At that moment, she felt that Yi Qinghan's not-so-tall body was so strong and so safe. It was like a towering mountain. So, after leaving Shady Stream, she decided to repay him. She used her whole life to repay him. So, she waited for him for many years. She rejected the first young master's proposal, and her family accepted Tu Xie's proposal. Then, she chose to run away. Finally, at that moment, she became his wife. Although she had many wives, she did not care. According to the customs of the God realm, every strong person had a group of women behind them. Female strong people could also have a group of gigolos. It was natural for the weak to rely on the strong. In the God realm, it was not strange for people to take wives. There were often old heroes who had lived for millions of years. They would marry a little girl who had just grown up, and it would become a story. There was a female manor lord of the Maple Shadow Manor in the north of the continent. She kept tens of thousands of gigolos, but no one said she was slutty. The world was just that fair, and the strong were supreme. Although Fireworks was not weak, Yi Qinghan was ridiculously strong. Most importantly, the two of them loved each other, and that was enough for Fireworks. Just as Fireworks was lost in her thoughts, she suddenly felt something moving inside her body, and it started to get bigger. Fireworks blinked, and when she saw Yi Qinghan's eyelashes flutter, she immediately realized what was going on. She shyly closed her eyes, and her face started to heat up again. Mother asterisk cur. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes and cursed. He, a dignified rank 9, had actually been beaten by a club. If this news got out, he would lose a lot of face. A rank 9 who had mastered spatial force was extremely sensitive to the slightest movement. But of course, Yi Qinghan was like a red-eyed bull. Why would he pay attention to such things? Fortresses were always broken from the inside. At this moment, Yi Qinghan had woken up. Of course, his heart was filled with resentment, and he fiercely retaliated against the person who ambushed him. For a moment, the sounds of fighting and moaning filled the entire palace. The infatuated girl who was guarding outside the palace trembled in fear. Freezing Night Monarch was indeed a fierce person, and his attack power was indeed strong. The storm raged for a few hours, and fireworks had long been defeated. She lay on top of Yi Qinghan, gasping for breath. She did not even have the strength to move a finger. Although for a god realm rank 9, this kind of exercise was nothing. But Fireworks was really tired, and her mind was extremely exhausted. When a person was in a state of excitement for a long time, once they relaxed, the result was obvious. Seeing Fireworks like this, Yi Qinghan originally wanted to carry her over to play a special game with Ling, but his plan was ruined. After sending a sound transmission to Blue Rain and Ling, Yi Qinghan hugged Fireworks, who was like a kitten, and laid on the large bed. He did not ask Fireworks what that bolt of lightning was. Instead, he closed his eyes and began to inspect his body. After a few rounds of inspection, he was incomparably shocked. He suddenly opened his eyes, sat up, and looked at Fireworks, asking, "Fireworks, does your family have any records of what will happen after obtaining the primordial een of women like you?" "Yes." Fireworks saw Yi Qinghan's serious expression and did not care that she was naked. She hurriedly sat up and said, "Our ancestors have 6 women who awakened the Thunder God's bloodline. All 6 of them helped their men break through the bottleneck of Peak God King and break through to God Emperor. Also, their divine power has the lightning attribute, and their attack power is increased by 30%. What is it, Big Brother Yi? See for yourself." Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed, and then a ball of white air came out of his hand. This was the origin power, but at this moment, the pure white origin power had lightning flashing on it. It felt like the origin power was like an auspicious cloud, and inside it, there were lightning dragons rolling. "Ah, Big Brother Yi, is this okay?" Fireworks covered her small mouth and said worriedly. Yi Qinghan shook his head, and then closed his eyes again to inspect his body. Finally, he smiled and said, "My body, besides some changes in the origin power, is still normal. There shouldn't be any big problems. I will ask Lord Devour and Big Brother Jide another day. Don't worry, little girl, a heaven and earth spirit body like you can usually bring benefits to people. You won't harm them." Fireworks finally relaxed. The origin power was above the soul sea. If there was a problem and it affected the soul, it would be a big problem. Yi Qinghan patted Fireworks and then hugged her to sleep again. However, the moment he closed his eyes, there was a flash of worry in them. Actually, there was one thing that he did not tell Fireworks. The power of thunder and lightning had indeed affected his soul. This was because the origin power above the soul sea was entwined with countless small electric snakes, moving back and forth inside the origin power. From time to time, they would strike into the soul sea and swim in the soul sea before returning to the origin power. It felt like there was a dark cloud floating above the soul sea, and from time to time, lightning would strike down like electric snakes swimming in the soul sea. The most important thing was that the soul sea did not react at all. There was no pain, no numbness, and it felt like nothing had happened. It was extremely strange. Yi Qinghan closed his eyes to inspect his body for several hours, and only opened them when the sun rose. For such a long time, the lightning kept striking from the origin power, but the 2 soul seas did not change. This made Yi Qinghan let out a sigh of relief. The soul sea was the foundation of every warrior, even though his soul had become extremely strange. However, Yi Qinghan did not intend to give up. This was related to his life. Although he was temporarily fine, Yi Qinghan did not dare to let his guard down. If the lightning kept striking, what would happen if one day the soul sea was destroyed? Therefore, when the sun rose, he suppressed his obsession with Fireworks and Plum. After saying a few words, he went straight to the soul devourer manor. Chapter 10:15. He went to the soul devourer manor, but when he revealed his lightning-infused origin power, Lord Devourer was stunned. Lord Devourer was silent for a long time. In the end, he could not give a reason and could only let Yi Qinghan continue to pay attention. Yi Qinghan went to Ethereal Peak again. In the end, Jida was also amazed and envious, but he did not know why. He specially brought him to Ethereal City to check the history books, but he still found nothing. Instead, the two of them experimented. Jida released his origin power, and Yi Qinghan used his origin power to attack. After a comparison, they found that the lightning-infused origin power was ridiculously strong. A battle between supremacies relied heavily on the consumption of origin power. If one side had more origin power, the other side would often die miserably. Once the two supremacies fought to the death, the space would definitely tremble. They would not be able to teleport and would eventually be killed. However, such a fight would not benefit either side. The origin power of a supremacy was an offensive and defensive weapon. Although the origin power floated above the soul sea and could continuously generate and increase, it was too slow. For example, the origin power that Yi Qinghan was bestowed by heaven and earth for the first time was not much. However, it would take at least 1,000,000 years to generate this much origin power. How many million years did a supremacy have? A supremacy's lifespan was at most 5 million years. Therefore, the origin power was extremely precious. Under normal circumstances, supremacies would not fight to the death unless they had a feud of killing their father or stealing their wife. They were all people of the upper class. It was not easy to reach this step. You enjoy your wealth. I play with my peerless beauty. Good for you. Good for me. Good for everyone. Jida and Yi Qinghan fought 3 times. They released the same amount of origin power each time, and then fought head-on. The result was that Jida wanted to cry. He used up all the origin power he released, but Yi Qinghan only used 1/3 of it. In the end, Jida, a dignified overlord, was directly sent flying. Yi Qinghan returned to Flame Dragon City in satisfaction. He did not think about it anymore. Since it had come to this, there was no point in thinking about it. He could only pay close attention to his soul. If the origin had lightning strikes, Lord Devour and Kid couldn't explain it. In that case, there was no need for him to tell them that the lightning within the origin power was still continuously descending on his spiritual sea. Even though he didn't get to the bottom of the matter, he still brought a huge pile of books from Floating City. It was an explanatory book about the various laws. Even though there was no detailed explanation of the basic, intermediate, or advanced profound mysteries. All he did was list the profound mysteries of each element, and at the same time, he added a few sentences to give a rough description. However, it still gave Yi Qinghan a rough idea. Of course, at this moment, Yi Qinghan was fully focused on comprehending and fusing the profound mysteries of the laws of space. The rest of the information was just to enrich his database. His goal now was different. He didn't want to become an emperor god, but he wanted to break through to the monarch level in terms of nomological laws. Thus, he had to focus on one type of nomological law. There were still 2 months until Xiao Hei's big wedding, so Yi Qinghan didn't choose to go into seclusion. Instead, he accompanied his wives day and night. After all, they were newlyweds, so he spent his days fishing in Sealed God Valley, looking at the flowers, eating spirit fruits, and plowing his own fields. His days were comfortable. Yinling Er's days were the happiest. She encouraged Yi Qinghan and often tricked Fireworks into playing with them. Fireworks was soft-hearted and couldn't withstand Yi Qinghan's lies. Furthermore, she had just come into contact with this sort of thing. Unknowingly, she had boarded Yi Qinghan and Yinling Er's pirate ship. In the end, she even encouraged Yi Qinghan to pull Blue Rain over. Every time Yi Qinghan looked at Yinling Er's bright eyes, he would even suspect that this woman had used a roundabout strategy. In the 100 Flowers cave, she had purposely seduced him and then infiltrated the enemy's ranks, openly playing with him. The construction of Fire Dragon City's 9 subordinate cities had also begun. Of course, one of them had already begun to be occupied. Nether City, which the Nether race had operated for 1,000,000 years, was frightened by Legian's ultimatum and fled to the Star Sea. Even the residents of the city were scared away, leaving behind an empty city. Yi Qinghan didn't have any intentions of expanding his territory. Otherwise, not only would Beacon Smoke Manor become Fire Dragon Manor, but the entire southern part of the floating continent would also change their surname to Yi. The construction of the 9 subordinate cities was just to separate the residents of Fire Dragon City according to their development potential and relationship. Yi Qinghan didn't want the city to have all sorts of people. Also, the residents of Fire Dragon Island, the citizens of the Fire Dragon continent, and his wife's family all needed to be settled. After killing so many people, there was a large basket of spatial rings. In the Soul Emperor Pavilion, he had stripped all of those young masters. The treasures on their bodies were all priceless. Although the Soul Emperor Pavilion didn't have any divine stones, some of the unremarkable little toys were worth a large amount of divine stones. Yi Qinghan didn't lack divine stones. When Lei Jun proposed to build a city, he let him handle it. Xiao Hei's wedding was held in Soul Eater City. This was Lord Devour's request. In Lord Devour's eyes, Xiao Hei was even closer to him than his own son. He used the entire Soul Eater Palace's power to hold a grand wedding for Xiao Hei. With Jita's help, there were 6 sovereigns who came that day. Hidden sovereigns who usually lived in seclusion made an exception this time, not to mention the big families of the divine world. Soul Eater Palace celebrated for 3 days in countless cities to celebrate young Master Xiao Hei's wedding. After the wedding, Xiao Hei stayed in Soul Eater City for 3 days and then came to Fire Dragon City to live in Sealed God Valley. Li Shui raised both her hands in approval. Coming to a paradise like Sealed God Valley was not only beneficial for cultivation, but it was also lively with many people. He could drag fireworks, light dance, and the others out to play when he had nothing to do. It was a real life of immortals. Yi Qinghan rested for a few months and told the women. Then he summoned Lei Jun. Little Han, are you going to cultivate in seclusion? Where are you going? Yi Qinghan didn't hide most of his matters from Lei Jun. So, when Lei Jun entered Sealed God Valley, he knew Yi Qinghan's thoughts. Yi Qinghan nodded and said, I'm preparing to enter the War Imperial Palace. I'll leave the matters in the city to you. Once you're done, you should go into closed-door cultivation. There are so many grand elders in the city. Let them handle the matters. Lei Jun smiled and said, and there's nothing else. Sahan has been learning fast recently. I'm going to let him take charge for a while. This child is smart. Recently, his cultivation has been stuck at a bottleneck. He said he's going to rest for a few years. I'll let him do it. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly and said, although Sahan has accepted me as an irresponsible father, he still doesn't like to talk to me. You're worrying too much. But if he makes a mistake, he has to follow the rules. This includes the disciples of Flame Dragon Continent and the people of Flame Dragon Island. This rule can't be broken. Otherwise, Flame Dragon City will be in chaos. If you don't have the heart to care, tell Qingwu, Qingcheng, and my grandfather that I've explained to them. And Lei Jun smiled and looked at Yi Qinghan. This was also one of the reasons why he liked Flame Dragon City. Yi Qinghan never protected his people. Yi Qinghan thought for a while, and his expression turned solemn. He said seriously, regarding the spies outside Sovereign Island, continue to nurture them. Don't be afraid of spending divine stones. Once Sovereign Island is unsealed or Li Kong comes out, inform me immediately. I'll definitely kill Li Kong. At the same time, we need to nurture spies in the 6 continents. We need to collect all the information about the various mystic realms and dangerous places. Chapter 10:16. Yi Qinghan entered the War Imperial Hall, and together with him was Yao Ji. Yao Ji did not have Yi Qinghan's 2 souls, so she could not enter the soul-silent state. Her comprehension speed was not as freakish as Yi Qinghan's, so she accompanied Yi Qinghan in seclusion, carefully comprehending the 2 restriction books that Yi Qinghan gave her. Of course, the most important thing was to help Yi Qinghan cultivate. The women of the bewitching succubus race were the divine world's top spiritual bodies, not one of them. In the entire divine world, only Lady Yinran, the divine grace monarch, could enter the 5th level of the soul silent state alone. Of course, the apocalypse monarch and Yi Qinghan could also do so, because the two of them had a woman from the bewitching succubus race. Yi Qinghan was not in a hurry to fight with Yao Ji. Instead, he went to the hall with countless mysterious stone tablets and looked at them one by one. 108 mysterious stone tablets. Yi Qinghan looked at them for a full 3 years, of which 2.5 years were spent on 3 mysterious diagrams. 3 mysterious diagrams of the spatial laws. These 3 diagrams were 3 types of high-level spatial mysteries. The diagrams were very abstruse, and the higher the level of the profound mystery, the more profound it was. After looking at them for 3 years, Yi Qinghan could only forcefully memorize the 3 diagrams in his mind. These 3 high-level profound mysteries were space suppression, space shuttle, and space combination. 3 high-level profound mysteries. If Yi Qinghan integrated them to large success, his law realm would directly reach the peak of grade 7. After comprehending the Tao that supremacy Li Quan spoke of, he could become a true supremacy, then advance to the real grade 9. It looked very simple, but Yi Qinghan knew that it was not simple. The more profound mysteries one comprehended, the higher one's realm would be. The harder it was to comprehend. A martial artist's cultivation was heaven-defying. How could the laws of heaven and earth allow martial artists to comprehend their true essence so easily? If it was easy to comprehend, then it would not be called heaven-defying and changing one's fate. After memorizing the 3 mysterious diagrams, Yi Qinghan began to look inside his body. Yi Qinghan was a little worried since he hadn't been checked for 3 years. After examining his body for a while, he found that there were no changes to his body, and there was nothing different about his soul C. The lightning within the origin energy continued to strike down, striking the soul C. The lightning circled the soul C once before returning to the origin energy. The cycle repeated itself, as if it would never tire. However, the white bridge between the 2 soul generals seemed to have become even more sparkling and translucent under the effect of the lightning. The small black line that had emerged from the bridge didn't show any signs of continuing to grow. Like a small snake, it quietly lurked on the left side of Yi Qinghan's soul ocean. Yi Qinghan looked inside for a long time, but he still found nothing. He opened his eyes and glanced around. He found the enchantress leaning on a mysterious stone tablet. She was holding a book on restriction and reading it carefully. From Yi Qinghan's point of view, the enchantress was wearing a thin veil, and her pink skin was faintly discernible. Her upper body was bent and leaning on the stone tablet. Her waist was sunken, and her plump buttocks were raised high, forming a perfect S-shaped curve, especially her plump buttocks, which could kill the eyes of all men. Coupled with her perfect side profile, it made Yi Qinghan's mouth go dry. Enchantress, enchantress. Although Yi Qinghan had played with the enchantress's delicate body more than once or twice, and Yi Qinghan was very familiar with every part of the enchantress's body. However, Yi Qinghan still felt that the more he looked at her, the more interesting it was, and the more he played with her, the more fun it was. Some women were stunning, but after having them, they would feel that they were just SOSO, and they would even lose interest over time. However, the enchantress, the creator's favorite, was completely different. Of course, the enchantress felt Yi Qinghan's gaze. The corner of her mouth curled up slightly, but she did not turn her head. Her plump buttocks were even more perky. Like a blooming peony, it was invisibly seducing the tourists, and they took the initiative to sniff its fragrance. Yi Qinghan slowly stood up, while admiring the enchantress's beautiful figure and her skin that was slowly becoming flushed. He smelled the delicate fragrance released from the enchantress's body, and felt the allure and charm of her body everywhere. Halfway through, he began to walk faster without realizing it, until he reached the back of the enchantress. The enchantress still did not turn her head, but her buttocks began to sway slightly. Yi Qinghan squatted down and slowly lifted the veil below the enchantress's body, revealing the two snow-white petals completely. Then he did not do anything but just watch quietly, as if he was looking at a national treasure. Pa, pa, pa. A beautiful rhythm, accompanied by the biting cold wind, sounded in the main hall. Following that, a man's low roar was mixed with a tender moan that was enough to make one's bones go soft. Yi Qinghan's closed-door training had officially begun. Flowers bloomed and wilted, and spring came from the east. In the sky of the realm of gods, as the bright sun and the enchanting moon took turns to rise, time passed quietly in the roars of men and moans of women. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of years had passed. The realm of gods was peaceful, and the supreme island was still sealed. Countless people imagined that the Star Monarch would come out of seclusion and fight with Yi Qinghan at the peak of the Fire Dragon City, but it did not happen. Li Kong did not play any tricks and did not continue to send people to assassinate Yi Qinghan's family and friends. The South Mountains monarch was even more dispirited. Ever since that time, no one had seen him appear. Even the servants of the Ying family thought that he had passed away due to anger. On the ethereal continent, Jita originally thought that the demon realm was going to attack, but it did not happen. Instead, news of the demons attacking the Tianqi realm and the Grace mainland started to appear. This made the monarch of Tianqi realm, Mo Shanghuang, and monarch Yanran furious. They were originally watching Ji to make a fool of himself, but now it was Jida who was watching them. The Fire Dragon City gradually became more lively. Although there were not many permanent residents in the city, the prices of the restaurants in the city were not too high. Many people paid a large sum of godstones to the city lord's mansion and booked countless restaurants for a long period of time, so that they could stay there for a long period of time. The holy fruit that appeared once every few decades in Fire Dragon City was good stuff. Every time it appeared, it would be auctioned in the Fire Dragon City. Those who stayed in the city would be able to get the news immediately, and they could even get a discount. With the protection of the monarch, it was hard for the Fire Dragon City to be deserted. Yi Qinghan never came out after seclusion. Although the empresses in the city were a little disappointed, they understood and went about their own lives. Yi Qinghan's words and their stable lives. The women began to find their own pleasures and pursuits in life. Yi Qingwu organized another wedding for Yi Sahan and Peach Blossom to make it up to Peach Blossom. Although no one from the other continents came to congratulate them, all the great families of the floating continent came. What made Peach Blossom very excited was that people from Peach Blossom Island came. Although the Peach Blossom Venerable didn't show up, and Peach Blossom didn't like the people from Peach Blossom Island, Yi Sahan knew that Peach Blossom was very happy. Yi Chong broke through to the God Realm and flew back to the God Realm with a group of martial artists who had broken through and refined divine crystals. Yi Baihu, Yi Qingyo, and Yi Tianlong returned to the Fire Dragon continent. It wasn't that they were returning to their roots, but that they were used to living in the Fire Dragon continent. Because of the rules set by Yi Qinghan, the disciples of the Yi family didn't dare to bully others in Fire Dragon City and the Nine Guard City. Of course, there were a few scum. Although they didn't do much evil, they were kicked back to the Fire Dragon continent by Yi Qingwu and Yi Chong. The descendants of the 5 great ancestors of Fire Dragon Island lived comfortably in a fortress city. Yi Luyan also became a senior elder of the Fire Dragon City. Except for a few people who stayed on Fire Dragon Island to wait for the old ancestors' news, everyone else moved here. Everything was developing in a good direction. If Yi Qinghan's strength improved after he came out of seclusion, it would be even better. However, these peaceful days were broken after 600 years of seclusion by Yi Qinghan. Something big happened in the God Realm that shook the entire God Realm. The 9 nether demonic worlds suddenly launched an all-out attack. The Fiend streams of the 6 continents revolted at the same time. Everything was in a state of emergency. Countless devils were like black moths, swarming towards the God Realm through the space cracks and the space cracks. All the sovereigns of the God Realm took action immediately to suppress them. Even Lord Devour took action. The South Mountain sovereign also shamelessly came out of seclusion. Countless hidden experts of the god realm appeared one after another. For a moment, the god realm was in chaos, and it was very lively. The devils of the 6 continents were forcefully suppressed, but there was a big problem. Supreme Island in the Star Sea was still sealed. After the Battle of Soul Emperor Island, a large number of Star Army was transferred to Supreme Island and the 9 Guards Island. However, Supreme Island acted as if it didn't hear about this catastrophe. Therefore, more and more devils appeared in the Star Sea. Countless Azura kings came out of the space cracks, and the entire Star Sea turned into a super huge Fiend stream. Martial artists of the Star Sea fled in all directions towards the 6 continents. Many islands were in a state of emergency. Countless messages were sent to the entire god realm like snowflakes. In half a month, billions of people died in the god realm. The sky of the god realm started to darken. It seemed like a great catastrophe was coming. Chapter 10:17. In Sealed God Valley. As soon as Lei Zhan appeared in the teleportation formation, he immediately teleported and appeared in Yi Qinghan's main hall. Not long after, several figures quickly flew towards the main hall. Fireworks, Xiao He, and the others received Lei Zhan's message at the same time and immediately rushed over. "What's wrong, father? Why are you so urgent? What's going on?" Fireworks, Yin and Lan Yu rushed over together. Inside the main hall, Yi Qingwu, Yi Qingyu, Xiao He, Yi Sahan, Li Shui, Peach Blossom, and Cherry Blossom were already waiting in the main hall. Fireworks saw Lei Zhan's serious expression and immediately asked. Lei Zhan had always been calm. Even if someone held a knife to his neck, he wouldn't change his expression. At this moment, however, he said excitedly, "Something big has happened." Xiao He immediately sent a message to Little Han. "The god realm is facing a calamity." Lord Devour sent a message to Little Han to come out of seclusion and go to Soul-Devouring City. Calamity? Everyone was shocked, and their expressions changed. Recently, everyone had been cultivating in the Sealed God Valley. Some were cultivating, some were gardening, and some were fishing. None of them had gone out. Normal people couldn't come in, so they obviously didn't know what was happening outside. Xiao He didn't dare to speak nonsense and immediately sent a message through their soul connection. Unexpectedly, Yi Qinghan closed the soul connection. Lei Zhan saw this and immediately turned to look at Lan Yu. Lan Yu nodded and immediately took out a jade talisman to send a message. Of course, she wouldn't send a message to Yi Qinghan. Instead, she sent a message to Yao Ji. Yi Qinghan had told her that if something big happened, the first thing she had to do was find Xiao He and then send a message to Yao Ji. If that didn't work, then she could only crush the black jade talisman he left behind. In the end, the enchantress replied very quickly. Not long after, Yi Qinghan and the enchantress appeared together in the main hall. After 600 years, Yi Qinghan's appearance hadn't changed much, but his temperament had become steadier. If the Yi Qinghan during Li Shui heir's coming-of-age ceremony was a sharp knife, then the Yi Qinghan, after becoming a monarch, was a sheathed knife. However, at this moment, Yi Qinghan's temperament had become that of a saber without a sheath. There was not the slightest bit of sharpness revealed, and he was as steady as a mountain. "Qinghan, Little Han, brother," everyone was overjoyed, their eyes burning with joy. Yi Qinghan swept his gaze across the crowd and discovered that their eyes were brimming with spiritual energy. Their aura hadn't been erased by the passage of time. Instead, their aura had become even more concentrated. Feeling gratified, he nodded his head at the crowd and smiled warmly at Lei Zhan. What happened? Calamity. The calamity of the god world is coming. Lei Zhan's eyes were filled with sadness and helplessness. Yi Qinghan's expression became stern. He nodded his head and asked Yao Ji to bring the crowd to sit at the side. Although the crowd was curious, they didn't dare to make a sound. They all sat at the side obediently. Yao Ji handed the restriction booklet to Yi Qingyu, then looked at Yi Qinghan and Yi Qinghan. Lei Zhan continued quickly. A month ago, all the baleful streams in the god world erupted at the same time. Tens of billions of demons descended upon the god world. The god world was shocked, and the 6 monarchs hurriedly gathered their experts to suppress the demons. Various hidden experts took action and barely managed to suppress the demons. However, the Supreme Island remained sealed, and the Star Army of the 9 Guards Island was not mobilized. The Star Sea was filled with bloodshed. At first, the monarchs thought that the Supreme Island would definitely intervene. Moreover, the demons from their respective continents hadn't been completely cleared, so they didn't have any concerns. However, 10 days ago, Peach Blossom's father escaped to the ethereal city with tens of thousands of martial artists from the clan. He told them a shocking piece of news. The Supreme Island still hasn't sent troops to suppress the demons, and the 3 main islands in the South Sea were surrounded by billions of demons. If the Peach Blossom Venerable hadn't teleported away with his people, the Peach Blossom Island would have been annihilated like all the other islands in the South Sea. Peach Blossom covered her mouth and couldn't help but scream. Her face had already turned pale. Although she didn't like the island or the people on the island, they were all her clansmen, and they all had the same blood flowing in their veins. The Peach Blossom Island had close to 100 million people, and only tens of thousands of them escaped. Yinling Er's gaze also turned serious. The Rain Butterfly Island was also in the Star Sea. Although it was close to the ethereal mainland, there was no guarantee that nothing would happen to it. However, although she was worried, she didn't ask anything. She only stared at Lei Jun. Yi Qinghan's expression became even more solemn. He didn't know how many people there were in the South Sea, but there were at least 1 billion. The 3 main islands had fallen. Needless to say, the other small islands were all annihilated. Moreover, if the South Sea was like this, the East Sea, West Sea, and North Sea wouldn't be any better than the South Sea. Although he killed 3 billion people with 1 palm, those people wanted to kill him, so it was understandable that he killed them. It was different now. The ones who killed were demons, creatures from other planes, and the ones who died were humans. When creatures from other planes descended, humans would usually forget about their hatred and fight together against a common enemy, because everyone was fighting for humanity. Yi Qinghan waved his hand to stop Peach Blossom from crying. He knew that even if the Star Sea was annihilated, it wouldn't be considered a calamity for the God Realm. Therefore, he looked at Lei Jun and waited for him to continue. Lei Jun sighed and continued. The arrival of Peach Blossom's father attracted Jida's attention. Then, Rain Duanfei also sent the information he collected about the Star Sea to Lord Devour. At the same time, the continents also accepted some refugees from the Star Sea. After the sovereigns exchanged information, they realized that almost the entire Star Sea had fallen. The only thing that remained was the internal sea. After a rough estimation, the number of demons in the Star Sea has reached 100 billion, and it's still increasing. There are at least several thousand Azura Kings in the Star Sea. The longer the space crack is controlled by the demons, the more likely a Devil Monarch will descend. Yi Qinghan's brows finally furrowed. The women, Yi Sahan and Xiaohei, were so scared that they didn't dare to breathe. What did 100 billion mean? They didn't know, but they knew that an Azura King was as strong as a Venerable. Several thousand Azura Kings meant several thousand Venerables. Yi Qinghan didn't say anything. He looked at Lei Jun. He knew it wasn't over yet. As expected, Lei Jun revealed another big piece of news at the end. Just a few days ago, when the Fiend Devils were almost completely wiped out, all the sovereigns and even the island of ice and snow, the towering mountain in the southernmost part of the immortal world, and even some arcane realms sent out countless experts to lead troops to attack the Star Sea and suppress the fiends. All the beasts and sea beasts in the God realm were stirred up. Right now, countless beasts have gathered outside the fiery dragon city. I killed the monster Tharch with 1 palm strike, because the monster Tharch also went crazy 2 days ago. Fortunately, I was there. Only a few people died. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Now, all the cities in the continents are surrounded by the beasts. Lord Devour wants you to stabilize the situation in the fiery dragon city and head to the Soul Devourer Manor immediately. Qing Yu and Qing Wu stay here. The rest of you follow me. Uncle Lei Zhen, let's go. Yi Qinghan's face darkened. A dark light flashed in his eyes. His entire being was filled with murderous aura. He unsheathed his saber, and cold air shot up to the sky. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.